matter whether you are running the full season, gunning for a championship, doesn't matter what your aspirations are, you always want to win here at Indy. Road course win is fine, but the 2.5 mile oval, you want to come across a yard of bricks first, so everybody gonna be trying to gun for that. It makes it very simple heading off into this race, just keeping your eyes locked on the prize, but the equation to get there is always going to be a bit tricky.
Yes, indeed. It's going to be that type of an evening where, for many of the drivers, it's about not just how fast you are, but it's about how well you're able to play out the strategy, how you're able to plan things out when caution flags wave. All of that type of racing matters. But tonight, we'll be faring out with 23 cars ready to stack up and ready to battle it out tonight. A part of this field, let's take a look at your starters here tonight. Ted Lowendick, he makes an appearance for the first time this season in Formula College Racing. He's your pole sitter with the best average time. That was 6/1000ths on the 4-lap average to Nathaniel Fryman. Fryman was also in the 39-second bracket. Lucas Santos starts off in the 3rd spot with Tyler Skosen in the 4th position in the 28 car. Nathan Ray will start in 5th today with Alex Halidar up in the top 6 this evening here from the Brickyard. Wyatt Burton, the defending race winner, he'll be looking to shine brightly tonight from 7th. Dylan Beatty is in 8th. Brendan Lyman and Jake Cummings are amongst your top 10. Cummings, we'll see if he's able to come his way through the field.
And then looking outside of your top 10 starters, P11 will be Jeff Evans in the 151 car, looking to impress there. Alongside him will be Josh Kampfer in the 172 machine. Alex Jones will start this race in the number 45 car in lucky spot P13. Next to him will be Andrew Vogt. P15 at the start of this race will be Mark Kalin. He'll be alongside Cade Corbin, who will start in that 08 car in P16. You look on row number 9, it'll be Grant Schiller alongside Logan McKim, an all-Canadian row number 9. Rounding out our top 20 is going to be Barrett Wolf, starting alongside Adrian Tubakov. And then rounding out your field, only 3 more starters. It's Garrett Greathouse alongside Nicholas Acosta, with Jonathan Ocasio, a driver who I got the opportunity to cover in the sports car series, winning at Fuji just 1 week ago here on the channel. He will round at your field starting this race in 23rd. So a very competitive field, it must be said here, JP. Everybody making that 105% bracket that was set in qualifying. Very quick speeds, very competitive field.
And it's going to be an interesting night for the drivers. Wow. You have to remember, to emphasize what was touched upon during the intro, it's quite simple. If you want to win here, you better have everything go right. You want to be able to put your name in the history books. Who do you think gets the job done tonight, Ron, and why?
Well, and that is a very tough question that you asked me, JP. You were singing the praises of Ted Lowendick a little bit earlier on, starting from the pole, but I'm going to be keeping my eye on I'm going to be keeping my eye on a man that I've been able to cover a decent amount here in the Collegiate iRacing League. Jake Cummings starting in 10th. I don't know why, it just feels like today may be the day for him. So let's see if he can round off this race at the front.
Happy to have you with us for tonight's coverage of the CIL 500. Green flag is out. We're underway from Indy. Oh, and contact in the heart of the field. Cummings amongst those pushing cars up the track already. The rest of the field rumbles its way through 2.
Yeah, heading our way onto the back straightaway for the very first time. Guys, start to see these drivers play that bob and weave game, swerving a little bit to try and break this slipstream, but it's not enough. Up at the front of the field, side-by-side racing, Lowendick trying to scythe his way through the running order, as up at the very front, Nathaniel Fryman has been able to grab the lead. Is still side-by-side between Skosen and Lowendick behind.
Skosen trying to get the inside working, but nothing doing. 3 wide, look at Wyatt Burton. He's flying up to the field already inside, looking to try and take the top 2 away, and will. Burton already flying through this field in the 26. Now sets his sights on Fryman to try and get the early lead here. As we know, Ron, it gets harder to pass once you get past around 10, 15 laps in with the tires.
Yeah, once the tires start to fall off, it's going to be a very tricky road ahead for these competitors. We'll see if they can manage it. But Whiteburn, a sneaky pick heading off into this race. He was your 2025 Collegiate Formula Series winner here at the Indy 500. So we'll have to keep an eye on him at the moment, already scything his way through the running order and trying to take the top spot.
There he goes, Wyatt Burnett able to take over the race lead. It only took him a couple laps, already on a charge of +6. Able to get through the field with the fastest lap of the race so far. For everybody else, the highest up is a +4, maybe in the heart of the field. Everybody else staying lockstep here, as it's going to be about plotting and planning for these pit stops. The money stop is around 170, 175 in the lap counter tonight, Ron. But remember, you have to be able to get your numbers there, and most of the people with the hard charge can go 30, and we have trouble off of 4. Hard contact with the wall. No caution yet. We stay green as Nathan Ray's the wrong way around, the Conestoga student.
Yeah, Nathan Ray had some assistance in that matter. It was side-by-side racing heading at turn number 4, and it was contact on the outside with Brennan Lyman. Lyman bouncing off the barrier and sending him around. Unfortunate to see that. Very lucky for Brennan Lyman, the fact that he wasn't collected in that even more. Now he has dropped back. Certainly some damage on the other right-hand side of that race car, but certainly a heck of a lot worse for Ray. He dropped down the field and is stumbling into a pond.
Disastrous start, to say the least, for the bicycle service technician training student. More importantly, he also runs in J-Car mini trucks, also some quarter midgets in turf experience. Likely going to be your first major repair, as we see the rest of the leaders going to have to potentially deal with him, because here's the thing, the 135 car has not peeled off the track, has a broken wing, has slowed down. There is a chance these leaders may get impeded here as the top 3 look to sort themselves out, those being Burden, Fryman, and Santos.
Oh, this is a dangerous situation right now. Ray is heading his way off through turn number 4 right now, and will finally pull into pit lane. Was going about 153 miles an hour off through that last turn. For context, your race leaders are going well north of 200, so very sketchy moment there, but thankfully they're able to get that taken care of without any sort of fear or worry. That driver rightfully pulling down pit lane, broken front wing, broken rear wing. That car was teetering around in a very dangerous position, but as we take a look at a replay of some driver scraping the fence.
Yes, that is going to be one of the St. Clair College students, Adrian Tubakovic, having issues in the aero wake. That's how bad aero wash is going to be here tonight. Lots of chance to wash up, lots of chance in the sight in terms of the middle of the corners, I should say, here, Ron, where you can push up and cause contact.
Yeah, what's fascinating to see that is considering the wind. We rarely, if ever, bring up the wind on broadcast. However, here at the Indy 500, when you're shipping it off into the turn, going well north of 210, nearly 222 miles an hour, the wind is going to make a massive difference. These drivers have a tailwind heading off down through into the south part of the racetrack, through into turns number 3 and 4 is where they're having to worry about that at the moment. So it is starting to shift a little bit and has gone lighter, now only 2 miles an hour compared to about 10 miles an hour at the start of this race. But we do have to consider that, especially as you head your way off into 1 and 2, where that tailwind is howling down the start of the stretch.
Yeah, that's going to be a big factor for some of these moves here today, as these cars zip on by. That air wind is not expected to really move too much. It is expected to increase, actually, around the midway portion of the day by at least a mile an hour. But no one's been willing to make these moves here, interesting enough here, Ron. One of the drivers, though, that's in this battle, Santos, is an interesting one to keep an eye on. He's from the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. He is a current student, but he has also got a lot of details, because he's also a 4th-year U.S. Air Force cadet. He's a current detachment commander, has also raced in a fair amount of special series, and has won in series that are on the network, like VCSA, when it comes to some of those endurance races. Oh, and he also won a sports car championship race in the early years of CIL back in 2022.
Yeah, of all that, though, a very impressive resume. The main thing that I took of note is his prowess in endurance racing. This is an endurance race, 200 laps. It seems smaller of a distance at 500 miles compared to what it was when the Indy 500 was first held all the way back in 1911, but it is still a marathon that these drivers and these cars have to run. So Lucas Santos, with his prowess in endurance racing, you may have to keep an eye on him to be a very strong contender all throughout this race, starting off strong, but keep an eye on him come time for the end.
Keep an eye on the data science major here tonight on how he's able to keep his car up front. They are having some drivers slowly creep up into the battle, by the way. That is Josh Kemper. That is also closing up. That's a Kansas State machine. That's in the purple right behind. The second of the K-State drivers making appearances this season, in fact, in this choo-choo train. Looking to set things up now right on the rear end of Santos, in fact, but no one's willing to push the tempo.
Yeah, and you can understand why, considering that that tailwind. These drivers are hauling the mail off into turn number 1, speeds of about 215 miles an hour down in there, and everybody just looking to settle this race into a groove after the chaos a little bit farther in the back, a little bit earlier on in this race. I think everybody wants to get all the early race jitters out of their system. If you can do that well here, you're going to be golden, but if you can't get that out of the way, it is going to be a nerve-wracking day in the cockpit.
Look at this, though, with the 78 machine. Lyman, he's doing one of the things no one else is doing in this field when it comes to this event, trying the high side. Normally it doesn't work really with the way the racing's gone, but look at that. He nearly clobbered the back end of the 135. Ray, lap traffic, nearly lost another wing.
And that nearly ended in catastrophe for Lyman. That's the problem when you've got these trains heading off into the turns. Everybody lifting a little bit, and eventually it just snowballs from there. So that's all stacking up to cause some racing to go on further behind. Lyman really starting to struggle. Sideways snap off the 3. He may very well lose this spot to Jake Cummings, who's all over him like a bear rug.
Yeah, right now, you have to think everybody's thinking big picture, hence why we see the choo-choo train. But a couple drivers are at least saying, you know what, let's go. The kind of stuff a college student just driving on by. A couple of yards in the back of the field, as you can see, are trying to go right now, like Mark Kalin. Interesting to see Kalin amongst this hornet's nest. Many others trying to sort themselves out too, like Ted Lowendick, who's dropped like a stone in the Ohio Northern University car.
Yeah, so Lowendick, after a unfortunate start for him, just not finding the momentum, getting off to a poor run and dropping down, looking to bounce back in a good way. Now, you can't read too much into these opening laps, considering we've still got so much racing left to go, but he can read into it somewhat. So if he can bounce back well, you will be golden throughout the rest of it. But I did see a little bit of a moment there for, I believe that was Camphor, who we saw run a little bit high off through turn number 4, smacked the fence as Lyman just swooped around the outside of Tyler Skosen to jump his way up into P5. That high line clearly working for Lyman.
Yeah, it's helping him leapfrog positions. No one else want to go. There's the lap traffic of Ray once again electing to push the tempo. That's actually bottling up a couple of these cars. Santos forced way out of the groove from traffic. And that's the tough thing. Traffic giveth, traffic taketh away. In this case, traffic nearly forced 3 wide and no change there. Although Lyman is still willing to push more on the fuel.
It's Fryman having a worry about that car of Nathan Ray on the inside, side by side off through turn number 1. These battles are starting to stack up this field. I'll be honest, JP, I don't have a good feeling about how this race is going for these competitors right now. They're fending out 3 wide, a little bit farther back, side by side throughout the field. This is similar shades to the 2011 Indy 500 in real life, when for the only time in Indy history, they decided to use double file restarts. Now, it was popular with the fans, but not very popular with the drivers. It was nerve-wracking throughout the day. I'm seeing similar shades of that really, really touch-and-go stuff here at the moment.
Camphor letting a couple of cars go here. Goes in, also trying to go. Of course, we know with his background, UNOH is where he goes to school. Oh, near contact. Nearly scraped wheel to wheel with Logan McKim, one of the St. Croix College students. McKim drives by on the outside. Logan McKim this season, he has been cursed in that car that just made that move, by the way. He's looking for a little bit of a redemption arc, is what I'm saying, Ron, because almost every time he's had some decent speed, something's gone wrong. Today, looking to prevent disaster, to say the very least, in the 3 car, and looking to keep himself clean. He's your biggest mover.
Yeah, so McKim getting off to a good start, hoping that the falling anvil does not strike upon his head. But of all the races to try and rebound, the Indy 500 is a fantastic spot to do it. So keep an eye on that machine running in P6 at the moment. And that all purple car right up in front. Whenever I see a purple race car, I think of Hoosier Tires, and hey, they're based in Indiana, albeit a little bit north and south Bend, but still the point remains. McKim nearly thought back, getting a move done on him, heading off into turn number 3 and 4. Now, maybe this is just me, but I always feel like moves into 3 and 4 are trickier than moves into turn number 1. Even though you've got the massive grandstands heading down the start-finish stretch, it somehow feels even more claustrophobic when you try and get a move done into 3.
I could say that, especially since we've seen some winning moves in recent years in real life come from that part of the racetrack, where drivers happen to be bold, sticking to the outside. Mechanical engineering technology driver, or student, should say, is hoping to just keep this car driving forward, way things shape up early on, trying to craft the right way to go about. Now, interesting note, they were running a full second slower for the first 15 or so laps of this race. In the past couple laps, for whatever reason, the entire field picked up the pace by a good 10, 15 miles an hour down the straightaways. That's good enough to see everyone back in the 42-second bracket after starting flying in the mid-41s.
Yeah, and I think these racers have gone out of the mode of being a bit more jittery, bit more hoppy to try and get the moves done. It was very froggy stuff that we saw at the opening stage of the race, and I was just waiting for the matter of time before somebody riveted and was going to shake the rest of the pond. But it didn't happen, although we still have the side-by-side racing. I think everybody trying to settle the race into a groove. They've turned up the wick a little bit. They've gotten the jitters out of their system, and now they're starting to bring up the tempo somewhat.
Here comes Camper, the alumnus, looking to go. Said the only thing, by the way, for that purple car that he had on the bio side he's given over the years is knows how to find fake documents. And he's looking to try and not get faked out by any of the plays here. The problem is the top 3 have ran away. As you can see, because of Ray helping, they've actually pulled a good second plus on the buffer to the next pack, with the Conestoga College student pulling them forward.
Yeah, so working out fantastically for your top 3, building a buffer, which is always nice to have come time for the opening series of pit stops. Got to be a tricky decision all throughout the night, trying to make your way into pit lane. Saw in practice earlier, drivers trying to deal with that pit entry. It's caught out drivers in real life, and certainly catch out drivers in the sim. This alignment and McKim fight still on for 5th.
You know why that's a critical thing for this race, though? In past years, as we both know, some drivers used to be able to cross the white line and be able to blend a little bit higher up above the white line that's down on the apron in 1 and 2 in the short chute, and maybe go to the very bottom of the track surface, then blend back down, arc it down, get a good launch for the back straightaway. You can't do that anymore. Quite simply, it is a very strict white line rule where if you touch that line, if you cross the line that you will see coming up towards your screen here on the inside of the bottom, you will get a penalty. You cannot use that to gain advantage. A few drivers at a couple of the 500s in recent times have gotten the chance to call, have been bitten by that in recent times.
Yeah, so if that just happens to all these competitors, you can forget about them having a shot to win unless some major chicanery goes down, which you can never rule it out here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. After all, Jacques Villeneuve back in 1985 won the Indy 500 despite being 2 laps down because of the penalty that he picked up. Then pulling that race in the Indy 505 because he was able to get that done. But still, that would be a major setback. Everybody wants to try and avoid the setbacks like the plague, but that will be very easy to make that mistake. Would not be shocked if at least one driver gets hit by that bullet throughout the night.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting dynamic, I think, with the way the pit road can go tonight with some of the strategy. Some of these drivers continue to fare out on battles. Lights goes in, able to get back in front of line, and that's for the 6th position. They've seen McKim run away, with McKim pushing a little bit higher. One of the things people have noted in recent times, how you can play around with the save, is what gear you may be running. For reference, a majority of this field is staying in 6th gear down the straightaways, 4th gear in the short chutes as low as to that point. Some are letting it stay as high as 5th gear in the short chutes and in 1 and 3 in particular. So a couple of drivers are, we can tell you in this field, playing around with the mapping and the gearing with how things are looking. Oh, hold on, we have trouble. Turn 2. Garrett Greathouse has gone around with a caution flag. Barrett Wolf, who was literally 13 seconds behind the field, is also involved.
And for the first time in this race, an interruption comes, and it's off into turn number 2. You can see those 2 cars wrecked. We'll be able to take a look at a replay of that in just a couple of moments' time. Talk you through what may have gone down here off to the south end of the racetrack. Turn 2 is always a choke point, whether it be practice, qualifying, or the race. That is when time breaks out. But I can already see the smoke up in the air. The smoke's starting to settle down with the first caution now out. So the field catching up to the pace. Car, whoa, don't run each other over. Camper nearly clobbered some cars. It looks like everyone's able to avoid contact. That could have been much worse on the checkup. But 2 cars now off track. Wolf and Greathouse back of the field. We can tell you Greathouse had gone around for a few moments. Fortunately, had blended down the racing line of the path of Wolf, who had lost the draft in the early going by a few seconds, as we said. So, unfortunate, one car has issues, and then a second car, just not knowing what was going to happen, gets collected, and that gives Greathouse EOL for loss of control and contact. Yeah, I took a look to see what the deal was for Greathouse, and it was similar shades to what Kyle Larson did to end his Indy 500 this past year, running below the white line, causing disaster for him all through turn number 2. But with this yellow, rather perfectly timed JP, in comes pretty much the entirety of the field for their first pit stop of the race. So pit service underway. A good time to mention that this series and this race by NAPA Longland Corporation. Longland Corporation, for your car, truck, SUV, heavy-duty needs. Visit NAPA and get the NAPA know-how. These drivers looking to see they know how to go in and out of the box here. 9 seconds seems to be the norm. Pit stops underway and done for Burden, Santos, Fryman, Camper. So, what happened with that incident is the question. Just look at that right here. This is where it sparked. Yeah, so you can see it wasn't a fully conscious decision to go down there. You can see the driver that was right around, scraping the fence coming out of turn number 1. And there's the auxiliary contact. Barrett Wolf with really nowhere to go as the wounded car of Garrett Greathouse was driving down the track, probably not holding the brakes as well as he could have, albeit that car was already ready for the scrap heap. And to let you know that that car that scraped the fence right in front of Greathouse was Grant Schiller. Gotta wonder what the damage situation is for the number 5. That actually, I believe, and most certainly tweaked the suspension. I saw the wheel was briefly ripped off there too. Can confirm that Schiller from St. Clair is getting repairs. Wolf, one of the drivers with a racing experience, getting himself to a very bad spot there with Glendown. And that is why Wolf now joins Greathouse and Tripakovic off the circuit. Can confirm at least 2 of those names. Tripakovic and Wolf are out. But that caution period will freeze up the field as we have the one-to-go signal taken this time through. Mr. Excitement has definitely brought the excitement to start. The 26 has led 24 laps out of the 26 complete so far. Yeah, your reigning event winner bringing the thunder once again. Now, you got to just stay with it throughout this race. It's good to lead early, and, you know, trust me, that's a big statement from him, and making up the spots that he did as well. That is a darn good performance from Wide Burn right now, but we have still got so much racing action left to go. We are just barely an eighth of the way through the action here tonight, so it's good to have pace early, but come time for this restart, let's see if Burn is able to hold on to the lead, able to withstand the pressure from the likes of Lucas Santos, who's been on a charge, and Nathaniel Fryman, who's been consistently quick throughout the day thus far. If Burn can hold them off on the restart and show that same sort of pace throughout, we may have to talk about him going back to back. But at the moment, he's just showing some good pace and holding on to the spot that everybody wants to be in. Outside that pace car right in front of him, everybody loves an unobstructed view up at the front at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Yes, indeed. And this great house is out of the car. That penalty board you see up there may be mute, but at the very least, if he does try and enter this race again, if the car is repairable, he will have to serve that. That leaves us right now with 19 on the lead lap. Nathan Ray, with this way the event is formatted, keep in mind, not able to get the lap back either there. So, the launch is on. Burnen's on the gas, back on her way. And there goes the Dragon.
Serpentine breaking out, heading down into turn number 1 and 2. Will we see it heading down the back straightaway? I have a feeling that we probably will, but look at Lucas Santos. He is close, he is quick, he's shown a lot of aggression thus far in the race. Let's see if he tries to take the top spot.
He's trying, he's going to the outside. Santos looks to try and stick it into 3. Doesn't work, but he has a chance maybe to boost for the front stretch. Flyman stays behind as, oh no, that's not a great time for technical issues. Doesn't hurt him all that much though, as everyone else stays bundled up in the heart of the pack, and Flyman's on fuel save. Santos is on lead charge.
And Fryman getting a fantastic view of that move, heading off into turn number 1. Textbook stuff. I think Wide Burn allowed him to play a little bit there. Those two playing ball with each other. That's one thing about the Indy 500, especially in the early stages. When you're running in this race and trying to get a good fuel number, you kind of have to play ball with your competitors somewhat. Kind of let them get in front of you. You can't just hold on to it all the time because the momentum will eventually stall. It's in an odd sense similar to NASCAR-style plate racing when you have to lift off the gas to get that bump from behind. You can't just be bending the floor pan in the race car all the time. Here at the Indy 500, if you lift a little bit, you can let that driver go in front of you, keep the momentum rolling, and get some good fuel saving in the process. You don't get good fuel numbers being a hole punch.
Exactly. And that's going to be something to keep an eye on all throughout the night on some of these strategy plays, as they snake their way and go down to the bottom of the racetrack for a split moment yet again. Scanning across parts of this field, by the way, a lot of drivers were able to, as that run progressed, go from the stuck in a line and to getting some 13 spots, gained a couple cases to Costa Ocasio. Each went up 13 apiece in 9th and 10th, by the way. Those drivers we'll watch for later. But Burden doesn't want to wait to see what happens later. He wants the lead. He wants to try and get clean air still and help out his tires.
You know, we talked about a bit earlier on in this broadcast, JP, talking about the tire management, which is most certainly a game that needs to be played by these competitors if they want to have a good shot at victory. We mentioned the wind and how badly that can affect your runs off through some of the turns, getting a headwind through some where you can just breeze through the turns like no tomorrow. But when you've got that tailwind, it's going to be super, super tough on you to make it through the turn cleanly, and super tough on the tires as Santos going to once again jump into that top spot over Wide Burn. The game of cat and mouse continues between these two. But another thing affecting the tire management here, JP, is the track temperatures. 83 degrees Fahrenheit at the moment. That's the temperature that converts to 113 Fahrenheit for the track temp. That is quite toasty.
Pretty toasty. It is a May in sim time. It could be worse. It could be in the hundreds, or we would see the pace really drop down. But as we see with those temperature sequences as well, you see them in Celsius, 45 degrees Celsius. What were you saying about the 83? Yeah, I thought you meant the track temp the first time you mentioned. That is very toasty, to counter my point. In fact, you can maybe fry an egg for a good 3 hours on it.
See, I always kind of like judge the other track temperatures based off doneness of a steak. I'm pretty sure that would be at most like rare, probably in blue territory at that point with the other 114 track temp. But either way you slice it, if it's enough to even slightly cook a steak, chances are it's well, you won't be able to cook a steak on that. You probably pick up some diseases. I love the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I've kissed the bricks in the track guide that they do around here in real life, but I would not want to eat a steak that was cooked in turn 2.
I mean, have you ever tried to fry a steak or anything like that on a rock? It's the same concept, only you get the extra flavor of Firestone tires on your steak.
Yeah, slight undernotes of Firestone tires. That's exactly what I want in my life. You know, they do have the other diamond ground surface here, small little ridges for drainage and for grip. So it'd kind of be like cooking it on a grill in an odd way.
You could say that absolutely here, but all that being said here, that will make... Oh, hold on. Someone going for a bit of a drift to pit road. That was a save and a half. Nicholas Acosta.
Oh my goodness, as soon as I saw that driver with a sideways snap coming on turn number 4, I thought we were going to see somebody Kevin Kogan at the start of this race. Let's see Acosta now up on the jacks, a huge sideways snap heading out of the turn. Very lucky to keep that car going in a straight line. Very lucky to avoid a penalty as well. You'd think that was going to be some kind of pit lane speeding penalty. Now granted, he turned his tires into rectangles, trying to get locked down to slow it down to pit lane speed in the barrier. But that could have been a heck of a lot worse for him. We're going to have to load up a replay to see that Code Brand moment put on full display.
Yeah, the Leon University mechanical engineering student, one of the alumnus in the field, having a ride, to say the very least. As we look at the heart of the field, top 5 is where you see it will pass by the pitting Acosta as he comes off. The interesting with that situation is, does it hurt Acosta long run? He is going to be off cycle with an extra pit stop the rest of the way.
See, I'm wondering what's the main detriment for him now? Is it the worry of the added stop, or is it any sort of suspension damage? Because I saw that he did smack the barrier, which kind of led to that incident taking place in the first place. So, gotta wonder how the right side suspension is feeling on that race car. We don't have fast repairs here, so you can't just come down pit lane, stop on your marks, and immediately have a race car. You can see that was a sizable hit there, and what a save. Having to snap that steering wheel around, lock up all fours. You know, it doesn't look like the car is driving too terrible. I'll have to see what he's doing now that he's back out to full speed out there on the racing surface. But the fact that that car isn't on the back of a wrecker is an absolute miracle.
That's an understatement here, to say the least. Now, Acosta, see the drivers on board here, just trying to ride about here at this point. 18th spot. If he is able to catch a caution, he definitely can get back into the race. That's the bright side here for his situation. He's right behind McKim, right in front of Voigt. For reference, in terms of track positioning, it's not a terrible spot, but it's going to be one that will have to develop a while from now. You can already see him just playing around with the throttle here, keeping it in 5th gear in the short shoots.
Yeah, and you brought this up a bit earlier on, JP, kind of talking about the gear choice for these racers. It's also a matter of handling as well. If you're running a little bit further behind, want it in a lower gear, not only so you have that better speed and better acceleration on demand at all times when the pace is a bit slower, also helps you handle a little bit more, keeps that back end of the race car a little bit tighter. The diff is a bit more on demand as well. It's loaded a bit heavier than it would be in a higher gear, but either way, he's running well further behind your top runners in this train of cars, which is just pretty much a never-ending loop.
Now our meatball flag, Brendan Lyman just had to come down pit road. That was unscheduled. We see the leaders continue to scrap back and forth right now as they shape things up. Santos and Burden throwing haymakers. Part of what is looking to start to form up to a 4-car group. And we have a couple people that just scraped the pack and right behind them. Lowen Dick and Jeff Evans, both amongst those who have knocked the wall down in turns 1 and 2. They are struggling with aero wash right here in the heart of the field.
Yeah, so the barrier is getting scraped at the moment. These competitors running into trouble. As you can see, Lowen Dick with a huge sideways snap heading off through turn number 3. He may be considering a big setup swing there. That car has looked angry throughout the opening stints of this race. Saw him start at the front from the pole, but things have just rapidly deteriorated as we see some drivers smacking the wall heading out of one.
That would be Lyman in that specific case. That was more than a scrape to add chassis damage or floor damage. That was destroying your entire suspension. That's why the 78 had to peel on down. You can't drive like that if you slam the tires here. This car is very delicate, to say the least, with contact.
And that it is, running at terminal velocity, the car starts buffeting and jittering when you get a little bit too fast here in these race cars. So you're at the edge of control, you're at the edge of what is pretty much mechanically possible. And on iRacing, when you smack the barrier, that car is not going to respond very, very well in kind. It's basically like going up to somebody who's at their like absolute breaking point and then just saying, hey, you want to go run a marathon? They will tell you 18 different ways in which they would rather do anything else. So a small little bit of wall contact, it may seem incidental. Small little scrape, that was definitely more than a scrape, it was definitely a smack, but a race car will not respond very, very well to that. It's, I could best compare it to, like, you know, kind of like running bad temperatures across any bit of glassware. If you have a household glass and you run that in hot water for an extended period of time and then dip it directly into ice cold water, guess what? It's going to shatter. You can't handle shock like that in a race car. Very similar to that.
And right now, already about halfway or so through the fuel run. That's how quickly this race has been going so far. And we have the quarter distance mark so far here for tonight's coverage here on Green Flag TV. We still see how things fare with the leaders here. Gotta think now in the case of Burton, what's kind of the thought process? We know he's been quick, but throughout the season complexion itself, just top 5 of the point standings, as said. He finished 3rd, for example, at the Fun of the Sun 250, 2nd in the Beach Party 150, finished 2nd in the NAPA Legends race. Once some of the races picked up for points, but the 14th place run in California is why your now race leader has been on the back foot for a while in these standings, it feels like.
Yeah, but as we said a little bit earlier on in this broadcast in reference to Logan McKim in the number 3 car running in 6th at the moment, you can turn around your season in the best way imaginable, getting a good result, getting a victory here. We'll have to see who's able to take the run heading out of this race and carry the torch as we continue on the rest of the season here in the Collegiate iRacing League. And of course, you can tune into the broadcast every single round here on Green Flag TV. This is a make or break race for drivers. In the sim, obviously, it's going to play out. In real life, it plays out as well. We have seen some drivers completely turn their seasons or even turn their careers around with a good result or a victory at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Many drivers, in fact, have been able to get their first wins in Indycar here at this track, went on to become champion, multi-time race winners. Case of Buddy Lazier, who went on to become the 2000 Indycar champion. He got his first ever win with a broken back in the bizarre 1996 Indy 500. So you think about it in the sim, and you can still kind of carry some of those stuff into from real life into the sim. You can turn your season around with a good race here.
And right now, Burton looking to really capitalize on what's been a really good race. Compare that to some of the other championship contenders, like Cummings, for example. Cummings is down in 12th position, has been amongst the drivers who've also had to get repairs done as well, Ron, for comparison's sake. So a bit of a flip of the switch. And again, remember, he could have had an even bigger points gap with some of the road races, but for whatever reason, he's just not been able to change tires correctly in the past 2 road course races. Hasn't switched compounds, has had to do 2 stoppers in what are usually 1-stop races.
And those small little foibles with the pitch strategy are always so frustrating for a competitor. You know, obviously mistakes that may go on with drivers out there on the racetrack, stuff that you can't control, getting caught up in other people's mess, that's irritating. But when the blame, I would say falls squarely on yourself, but when you feel like the blame is kind of shifted to you, that's when it always eats away at you somewhat. I remember back in my own karting days, whenever I would lose out of an event by small, incremental margins, I would think about small little things that I could have done throughout the day to make that better, make that result better. A P2 would sting the worst if you lost out by only a couple of tenths of a second. At that point, I remember saying this one time, I would rather get completely blown out. Frankly, I would rather lose by a country mile than lose by just small little mistakes. And those are the ones that always eat away at you the most as a competitor. So we'll have to see if some of that can be left behind and can tackle the rest of the season without those pit lane foibles.
Yeah, that will be the important thing, especially with a lot of those races referred to later on in the schedule. When it comes to this series, there's also the wild card, the random track, so to speak, coming up in the next few weeks, I also believe. So it's going to be an interesting next few races when it comes to Formula College. But remember, a lot of the drivers here making one-offs here tonight because there's the pursuit of the prize pool, but also the pursuit of history. Take, for example, Kalen, Jeff Evans, some of those drivers, a part of this field. There was a big recruitment effort by some of those in CIL to be able to draw competitors into this race as well from some of the other series Green Flag TV covers. In fact, a couple of drivers from the Premier Sim Racing Truck Series making the crossover as alumnus. That includes Evans, who went to Virginia State, Kalen, who went to Sullivan University, Lowendick, who's appeared in some of those races as well, who we referred to already from Ohio Northern. In other words, the attraction was high to be able to race and have some fun and represent your college or university.
And being able to rep a strong name is always such a point of pride for these competitors. I always love getting the opportunity to chat with some of these competitors once the racing is said and done. And there's that sense of pride and achievement that they're able to bring their college and university into victory lane. Just saw a move there from Jake Cummings on Ted Lowendick in the meantime. So the Converse University man in that number 95 car getting the spot over the Ohio Northern University racer, now slotted down 11th. For Lowendick, this has been a tough ride throughout the first quarter of this race. You can take solace in the fact that we still have 3/4 of it left to go, but the first quarter's acting to go by. This is going to take a massive swing for this number 19 car to get back to pace.
Yeah, keep in mind, it's going to be the interesting thing on being able to plot and plan on the strategy play. Remember, with that scrape of the wall, going to definitely be hurt a little bit. He's running 42.8 at the moment. The vast majority of the pack is half a second quicker at the moment. So Lowendick definitely feeling a little bit of the struggle bus as we are almost up to the window for pit stops. And the interesting timing of those previous stops under caution here, Ron, is this goes to the distance. Numbers are going to be something a lot of these drivers will have to think about here as we get closer and closer to the end. Right now, if you play the race in reverse, you're talking about the shortstop already coming up in the first 25 laps because of caution.
Yeah, and despite the fact I said a few moments ago that we are only a quarter of the way through it, you still have to focus on the end. Keep your eyes locked on the prize. Fuel, oh my goodness, as we nearly just saw a death on camera. But the fuel mileage games at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway between Indycar and NASCAR, for that matter, they always get played. A lot of the time in Indy history, it has come down to drivers playing the good strategy, as we just saw another move from Jake Cummings there farther behind, getting the move done on Jonathan Acasio on the number 35 car after starting this race in the back. He's made his way up into the top 10, but has now fallen back down to 10th. The fuel strategy games, though, are going to be massive throughout. If you can play the game well, know what to do, and be able to execute it well, you can come out of this race kissing the bricks and drinking the milk.
Oh, a little bit of a kiss to the wall there we just seen for one the driver. They're able to keep on steadying it out. That was Alex Jones on the previous scrape. But you're right about getting the chance to have that glory, of course. The milk is tradition when it comes to Indianapolis Motor Speedway, to say the very least. There are a couple drivers who I know who, if they win, would absolutely thrive with that. I know Lowendick is one of them because he loves to do shoeies, for example, Ron. That's going to be a little bit more difficult, though, with the way the car's going. You don't like shoeies?
See, shoeies, I can understand them to some degree, but a milk shoey, that's, oh, that sounds like a way to write off a shoe.
I mean, he's done it multiple times in our series. That's why I bring it up. But these other drivers up front are right now controlling the tempo. Santos and Burton seem to be in the driver's seat, but some of the drivers back here are trying to make charges, like Cummings. Now, a little bit of outside note when it comes to Cummings. He, on top of being a master's student, when it comes to trying to study professional leadership, also is the general manager of TechSport Racing Sim Team. Of course, TechSport related to GR Cup, and interesting enough, SRO did announce that series was not getting renewed after 2 years of racing. So it's going to be interesting where he brings TechSport and its sim efforts now with that series no longer having connections.
Yeah, so an interesting road ahead. We'll have to see how things work out. But Jay Cummings making the road ahead in this race a little bit easier for him as he just got another move done. This time it was himself and Andrew Voigt in the 009 car that he was just able to get a move done, hang down the backstretch into 3 and 4. One more point, though, talking about the milk, and we'll be playing this game throughout the night. Do you know the first year that a driver drank the milk in victory lane at the Indy 500?
Do I know that off the top of my head? I honestly do not. What is it?
It was 1933, and Louis Meyer, who drank a glass of buttermilk because his mom said to him as a child that was a good drink to have after a hot day.
It's an interesting story, to say the least. You say what you want about buttermilk. I mean, milk is milk, I guess you can say. In most cases. But, I mean, there's a reason they have each driver select their favorite milk so it's ready to go in case they win.
Yeah, and every single year there's a growing contingent of drivers. It started with Ed Carpenter asking for buttermilk every single year. Now, the buttermilk that Louis Meyer drank back in the day is very different than the buttermilk that you can buy nowadays. It's not really drinkable when you buy it today, but you know, you live and you learn, I guess. If I drank a glass of buttermilk on a hot day, or if I just drank a glass of buttermilk, period, I'd probably be down for the count, but we'll get lost in that discussion. We do have some drivers coming down pit lane here. Fascinating to see the pit window fully open.
Cummings just came down this time through. We had Camford also join. Corbin peeled down. Nathan Ray also completed service. Of note, Kate Corbin actually had to get a wing change done based on how much time was put into the box for the 08 machine. So at least a couple of these drivers have racked up some damage as you see the stops in one box. The cars ready for stops this time, including 28 who just got a pit stop. 009 also pitting.
So nice to see some strong drivers here in this race. Now breaking away from the field to come into the pits. This is the closest we've had to 20 stops so far. Still a long way left to go, but this is the first series of green flag pit stops fully in these drivers' hands. Keep an eye on how they execute. We still have to keep an eye on those penalties.
Yes, Vernon finishing up in the box right now, already up on the jacks to get his Firestones up and on. Makes the change of the tires, immediately turns it hard to the right. 10.2 seconds as everybody's filling up these tanks. A couple drivers like Alex Jones missed their stalls a little bit, but everybody else seems to be doing well. Of note, Fryman, Ocasio, Lowendick, Evans, and Beatty were all able to go an extra lap or so here. Fryman just peeled on down, and a lot of those names mentioned are all together nearly crashing.
Oh, A stack up heading down pit lane. Those drivers should be counting their lucky stars that they're still running at speed down in pit lane, as close to speed as you can get here, trundling your way through pit lane, now into their pit stall. We talk about the penalties, but you also have to consider nailing your marks on pit lane. Small little miscue there, and you could be in for a world of hurt. But the drivers up on the jacks, now up and rolling once more. Let's see who's going to be able to come out of this pit cycle smelling like a bed of roses.
There they go off the lane, a couple side-by-sides in the background there, but good stop for 35. Good stop for Dylan Beatty, who took a darker red ball straight car to the field tonight. Up front, right now Camper battling with Skozen. This is in the second pack. Oh, a little bit of a low dive. Couldn't make it stick, but we haven't had a crash. And this sees Kate Corbin have a destroyed car with no caution.
Oh, trying to figure out exactly what happened there. Huge drama that is going to be essentially either a total game ender or most certainly a game alterator, as we can see now. Driver scraping against the fence once again, coming out of turn number 1. Even if you can bounce back from damage like that, your night will be effectively over. So unfortunate to see that, as these drivers are playing with fire a little bit more at their own circuit. I'm seeing these close calls just build up and build up and build up. These racers not feeling too comfortable about the way their race cars are driving as the track temperatures continue to heat up. I just saw 118 degrees Fahrenheit right now for the track temp.
Yeah, so it is sizzling there as we're almost at 1 p.m. in Sim. Now for Kate Corbin, economics major from the University of Alabama at Huntsville. Didn't trigger the caution flag because watch this, out of 4, slaps one wall, slaps another, up the track. No one else is around by the time he tows.
And I was worried there that we were going to have our first Kevin Kogan moment. Anyone who doesn't know that, IndyCar driver Kevin Kogan once crashed heading into pit lane in, crash heading out of turn number 4 and then ended up stopped in pit lane on his side. It's happened to other drivers since then, but we haven't seen a driver fully crash into the pits quite yet, although they have crashed into the inside wall heading out of turn 4. That's a pretty vicious double whack. That car is probably going to be completely out of contention. Unfortunate for Corbin, showed some good speed early, but that is complete game ender.
That adds on to the DNF list. We're down to less than 20 cars left on the racetrack as we continue on with this one already. Coming up to the end of lap 64 this time through. The gap is 5 seconds, by the way, for the 26 and 13 to everybody else who were up in that same group before stops. That's how critical the sequence of pit stops went for your lead cars with how well they played it. They're driving slower and still maintaining this big gap.
Yeah, doing everything that they need to do right now, playing the game brilliantly. It's always a game that you have to play. It can range anywhere from a game of chess to a game of battleship, but it is a game nonetheless. If you can master the pit strategy here at the Indy 500 and position yourself well, it'll just snowball from there. You got the first pit stop down right, then the second, then the third. It goes on and on and on throughout the night, and eventually those small little incremental gains will add up. It's basically like, you know, getting a penny every single hour for the rest of your life. You know, may not seem like that much at the moment, but eventually that will stack up over time. So these drivers doing everything in their power to set themselves up as well as they can for the end, but the short-term gains that they're getting right now, pretty sweet too.
Yep, that's going to be something to keep an eye on with the fuel save for the leaders. A little bit more of a charge for everybody else to try and chip away. The biggest thing out of all this is Cummings did cycle to this pack also. So your season points leader, at the very least, is in the conversation to chip away the gap, albeit just barely hanging on to the toe of Fryman in the Ball State car. So a lot to factor in as we go on here on.
Yeah, a lot left to consider. Things settling down out there on the racetrack currently. Everybody just with their eyes on the prize, looking to see how well they can position themselves for the final run through to the end of this race. Still shy of the halfway mark, 67 laps on the board out of 200 here. And would you like to hear one last story to come out of the 1933 Indy 500?
I feel like I've heard this one, but I want to hear it.
So it's relating to the winner. This is kind of like Indy 500 lore with this. So the race winner, Louis Meyer, the other man who started the tradition of drinking the milk, he was obviously very successful, won that race, went on to become a multi-time Indy 500 winner, actually won it 3 times between 1928 through to 1936. Fantastic racer in his own regard, but after the race, there was a driver named Will Overhead that was reported as being the winner. What ended up happening in that was the reporters were receiving the information through telegraphs, obviously, because it was 1933. The internet was far from being around. Even AOL wasn't around at that point. But the race took an incredible period of time. That 1933 month of May was incredibly tragic, very hectic. It also saw, I believe, an Indy 500 record at 42 starters in the race. There weren't the traditional 11 rows. There were 14 that year. So you had a massive field, really hectic month of May, really hectic race. The race ran super long, and instead of giving incomplete information, they pretty much the call over the telegraph was Will Overhead won the Indy 500. And somebody at the reporting agency did not realize that that was just telegraph lingo for the reporter to fill in the information once the information became available. So they printed that Will Overhead was a winner of the race, when in fact Louis Meyer was a winner and Will Overhead was never a real person. So that is something that I did not learn until very recently about the 1933 Indy 500. Lucas Santos once again gets abducted by a UFO there, but I figured I would share that nice little festive piece of Indy 500 lore.
Definitely interesting to say the very least. It definitely shows this can change a lot over the course of things to prepare for what is going to be expected to be a busy race and as well here today. That in mind, that gap is down by half for those on the stops, by the way. So this pack right now doing well while saving. I think part of this is they're really using that 78 as a fuel save device to push their windows here in case it comes down to top-offs wrong. It's a critical thing for the math. So absolutely playing things around, because if they could save a couple seconds in the pit lane, if it does trend green later on in the day, gives them a huge advantage, and that's why they've tucked up behind one of the drivers that's hit the wall a couple times.
And as I said a few moments ago, everybody settling into a groove in this race. They don't want to put too much of their mental focus into battles out there on circuits. They're just trying to quietly go about this race as best as they possibly can. Run golden to set themselves up as well as they can for the very end of this race. Keep the eyes on the prize. I've said that a lot throughout this broadcast, but yeah, I said right towards the top of the show, this is a simple race in an odd sense. Now, the equation to get to the sum is very complicated. You've got a lot of different permutations. Everybody going about this race a little bit different, even though they may be coming into the pits on the same lap compared to some of their rivals. It is still a very different equation to get to the sum, but the sum will remain the same. Everybody wants a victory. Nobody settles for a good points day at the Indy 500 unless you've gotten involved in an accident. So there's one goal that these competitors have, and it is making it into victory lane, kissing the bricks, and it does lift a little bit of pressure off these drivers' shoulders to say, you know what, all I know for sure, don't know what's going to go on in this race, but I know as an absolute certain that I just need to try and win.
Yeah, and right now, those packs, we can tell you this, have converged together here as we still take a look for the others here. But Kim, best race of the season so far. Seeing a little bit of push up there with Dylan Beatty. drag them around a little bit for the toe, for example, here. And at this point here, if you are, let's say those in, say, the 4, the 6-second backpack for some of these cars here, how difficult will it be at this point to have a chance to get up to this lead group the way things have shaped up, especially since we know that the longer this run goes, the harder we make a charge. That's a bit of a bold move for the Kansas State car.
Yeah, Camper peeking out really late, heading off into turn number 1, but again, to the point that you were raising there, JP, talking about what needs to go down for some more racers to get involved in this fight. There's a lot that you can control. There's a lot of destiny that is in your hands here in a race like this, but there's a lot that's out of your hands as well. You just kind of got to ride the wave of momentum, frankly. If things are swinging in your direction, it's going to be a heck of a lot easier. If there's battles going on in front, they're going to slow each other down, and it'll just bring you right into the fold. Sometimes, though, you just kind of have to hope for a miracle, hope for something to change. If the status quo is kept in front of you, you're going to have to put in a whole lot of effort. There's one saying that I heard described. It was one of those like motivational quotes that people occasionally just post on social media or put in their social media biographies whenever they want to try and seem special. But it was one that kind of stuck out of my head. They were talking about just momentum in life and kind of comparing it to pushing a car. You know, once you get that car rolling, things are a heck of a lot easier. But to get that car rolling in the first place is tricky. To get things to go well for you in a race like this, you gotta have momentum on your side. But to get that momentum rolling, there's some things that you can do. You can work really hard at it, but it's usually a lot easier if you have a downhill descent to help you out. Not even something you can control, but if it works, it works.
Indeed, these drivers are working hard to be able to solidify what's been a pretty solid green flag run here. This run has lasted a good 50-60 laps, give or take, so far, after the initial caution came up actually around lap 25 here in this race tonight. So there's a lot of effort going to be having to put in for some of the errors to be able to game plan. To some of the errors, this is a long conga line of cars that are built up at this train, by the way. Santos is losing touch in it, though, almost. He's fallen off the full second already. After being one of the main contenders early since that pass, he's dropped off an extra 7/10 to Kemper, who's really pushing ahead. 26 laps led, remember, for Santos early on.
We've got some very quick drivers up at the front of the field. Even though we're talking a lot about setting yourself up well in terms of the strategy at the end, they have shown some good speed. They have shown good conviction in this race. Whiteburn, we've talked about him a lot in your race lead right now. He won in 2025, looking to try and repeat here in 2026. Josh Camper has been able to show a level of thunder and aggression. We saw him put the very gutsy move on Lucas Santos not too long ago into turn number 1. That was a really, I hate to say it was a ballsy move from Josh Camper. That takes some stones to try and get a move done like that. I don't think he's over yet, though. I think he's now trying to find a way to get past Whiteburn, certainly showing some pace. And even though he's been occasionally abducted, Lucas Santos in P13, in the number 13 car, running in P3, excuse me. He's quickest. Here comes Camper, 2 for 1, getting the spot done on Burn.
Able to get himself the lead for the first time today. How about that? He's been able to drive up 11 spots. Now the 172 has the advantage for the first time this season. Now it comes the question, do they still utilize the 78 as a fuel save strategy? Do they go? It looks like there's a right indication that Lyman's going to let him go.
So I wonder if this is going to play into the hand of Josh Camphor or not. There you can see the Swaparoos. They head their way down the start-finish straightaway. Camphor now with an unobstructed and perfectly clear view. And credit where credit is due to that lap driver trying to get out of harm's way and let as many of your top running competitors by. If he was running in front, I think that would have kind of played against these top three. As you can see, Tyler Skosen just there in the back, a shot running in P4 at the moment. He's only about 7.5 of a second off of Lucas Santos, who he himself is only 6.5 of a second off of your race lead right now. So I think these top three are kind of happy about that in terms of just having the breathing room to try and stretch their legs. But if they're trying to play the fuel-saving game, they just lost a big asset.
And now it's snake time. Everybody looking to slither. Able to drive himself your way to the wall. To make the way on through to the short chute. This is allowing Santos a reprieve, by the way. He's been able to pick up the pace since that swap by an extra couple tenths of a second. This train, loosely, is now connected 4 seconds if you include Beatty and McKim. But the way things are shaping up, as they are right now less than 10 laps away from peeling back down to the pit cones here in this one. That would put them into a little bit of a tight box. You're talking about if they were to get, say, to 32, 92 if it is to 30, about maybe 90 or so on the stops, give or take, we're thinking here. Math would show then the stops 120, 150, maybe 180 if you were to go the 30-30-30 path.
Yeah, now we have to get into the minds of these racers slightly. What do they prefer? Do they prefer simplicity coming to the end of this race, or do they want to try and have some wiggle room for the end? You know, an odd comparison to bring up Formula One, but I'll bring it up in this case. Last year's Qatar Grand Prix in F1, we saw McLaren decide to opt to have a bit more leeway with the strategy come time for the end of the race, but it didn't work out well for them. They did not make the good call. It hurt them in the end. They may have had more comfort, but they didn't have the victory here. Everybody wants to try and get the job done, but the path to get there is far from straightforward. Do you want to have that simplicity of knowing, okay, I just need to run to this distance, and I'll be golden for the end? Or do you want to try and have a bit more freedom, just kind of not lay loose per se, but kind of go with the flow of things a little bit more? The field is spread out, but we still have to consider the prospect of yellow flags. If it were me, JP, I'll be honest, I would maybe want to have a bit more wiggle room and some freedom come time to the end on the strategy side, but that's just me.
I just like having a lighter race car to be able to go faster. It's kind of my thought. But also save a little bit of time in that case with the fuel save. So there's so much in terms of that dynamic we'll see here today. JC Cummings, muscles lined up there at the moment, trying to push. 115 to go when we come up to the stripe here. It's been an exciting run of this year's race. The second annual CIL 500 presented by NAPA Longland Corporation. For those viewers tuning in, we have a crash. Someone just slammed the pit wall, and it was, oh look, Logan McKim. The bad luck strikes again.
The disastrous 2026 campaign continues for Logan McKim, and you can see that wheel completely snapped off on the front left. That is gonna be huge, and let's see how it happened. It's turn 4, striking once again. Sideways snap out of the turn. I think he may have smacked the outside fence and just ricocheted him off there. We may have potentially had our first occurrence of the Kogan, so we'll have to figure out whether or not that was the case or not. But either way, regardless of how he hit the wall, whether he smacked the pit attenuator, the point still remains that the disastrous campaign for the number 3 driver continues. That's going to probably end his night.
Tryon University student continuing to try and figure things out on the front of the field, but the DNF list adds another casualty. McKim is officially out of the race. Leaders are coming down. Here's a look at what happened to the St. Clair College student. I don't think he hit the pit wall, but he definitely hit the inside wall. Almost got it.
Yeah, nearly tagging the attenuator, but either way, still disastrous moment for him as Luke Santos and Josh Kampfer have both come into the pits in live time right as we were talking about the pit strategy a few moments ago, JP. Well, it is here and here with a vengeance. The pit stops are back.
Yep, wide open window. And here's the interesting part. Kampfer only went 29 laps. So that runs a little bit tighter than it needs to be here, to say the least, to make your numbers. If they go the 29 onward number, let's put it this way, they'll barely be within the mark to make it on gas as we originally had anticipated. Burden, no drafting partner, goes in now up to second with this window for now. And here's the thing for Kampfer. I think he's been booked for speeding. He's yet to leave pit road.
Oh no, we're seeing him be oh so aggressive out there on the racetrack, but maybe a bit too aggressive on pit entry, and that's gonna bit him. That's gonna bite him. That is a huge moment in this race. The 172 car that looked to be a indomitable force, certainly one of the drivers to keep an eye out for, running into trouble. There he is still on pit lane. I think he may have just decided to call it a night, hopping out of the car. Yeah, that is gonna do it for him. Such a shame for Josh Kampfer. He had a fantastic shot. I'm actually taking a look. He may have smacked the barrier too. I'm looking through. Yeah, he locked the rears on pit entry, sped, and hit the wall. So I wonder if that was either speeding or potentially an unsafe entry.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. He has been in the lane for a while. Kampfer's out of the race. Both the Kansas State drivers have officially left the race to confirm, so they are done. And I just got confirmation. 172 hit pit wall, right side tire, right front is why the driver who was the biggest challenger to Burden in this stretch is now off circuit. Pit window continues. Jake Cummings just entered pit lane.
And that changes the complexion a little bit, having one of your top runners throughout this race, a driver that I think had a really good shot at grabbing the W, falling into trouble. Now Wyatt Byrne has to think about how he tackles this pit stop. He's seen his rivals fall out because of pit lane incidents. He has to worry about the entry, worry about the exit. These cars are meant to go left, and they're meant to turn left and go fast. They're not meant to drop the anchors, turn right a little bit, and go down pit lane. Pit lane here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, I will say, and this is on as you can tell, that this racetrack was built all the way back in the early 1900s. The pit entry and pit exit, the pit lane as a whole, even though it's had many changes over the years, is still one of the more dangerous ones in the world of motorsports. It is narrow. It is claustrophobic when you head your way in there. I can best compare the feeling of pit entry here at Indy as to covering the outlet of a hose with your thumb and having the water shoot out at high speed as a result. It feels so tricky to try and drop the anchors through there, and we've seen drivers get bit by that so far.
Right now, pressure is on to make sure no matter mistakes if you're some of these contenders, as the field has dwindled from what was a 23-car starting grid run down to just 15 here in this one. As we are currently looking at some of the errors down the front straightaway, limited yet again. Working with some of the drivers that outside the series work for Solpec Precision in terms of their alliances. And you have to wonder just how much these drivers who are really able to save the gas are going to be able to capitalize later on, because them and Fryman are basically on the same cycle. The downside is here, Ron, the net time to the lead is somewhere like 5-6 seconds off. So this is going to be a big swing they have to hope for later on to be able to chip away when they make that next stop, as here they go for the scheduled service at 94.
It's a snowballing throughout these races. If you can nail down the stops, you can be absolutely fantastic. Just work at it throughout the night. You don't need to make a huge swing at it in one pit cycle. If you could just make it work one time. I said a couple of small little gains throughout will add up at the end of 200 laps. So these competitors looking to pull that off right now, just nailing the strategy when they can and not making too many huge swings at it.
At this point, everyone else just trying to play the game. Santos has played this game on a 5-lap difference to get the lead. He also turned some of his fastest laps in a while with the 41.8 as Fryman now peels on down. This will be your new battle for the lead coming up on the top screen. Fryman able to stretch it the furthest out of anybody in the field. 34 laps, including the in lap for car 23. Hold on 1 second. Decent entry and exit. Not enough, though, to be in the battle for the lead, but it will put him in a great spot for later on here for where he cycles. Going to put him still in the top 5. So, as we continue on with the cycle and finish up, so said pit stops, we're just about at the halfway point. Caution flag is out. Alex Helenar has crashed. The Binghamton University student has crashed the car.
Yeah, that looks to be through the south end of the racetrack through 1 and 2, stopped against the barrier. I think turn 1 may have been the point of trouble for him. You can see that car completely wrecked, front nose cone missing, wheel broken off, both front wheels broken off. It looks like, let's figure out exactly how that may have happened. That was a very big impact for sure to completely break off the front end. I wonder if it was potentially an overcorrection through 1, sending him into the outside wall, or maybe even hitting the inside barrier. That's been seen before here at Indy.
Yeah, bit of a slam, to say the least. That'll... Yep. That brings us down to 13 running. Acosta's also out. Here's a look in the pack. That's Voigt on the outside.
Oh, just as I feared. Thinking it was by himself, but it was side by side, and similar shades to what we've seen happen all through turn number 4 throughout this race, JP. This time happening coming out of 1 through the south chute, and disaster breaking out there.
The NX Legends car driver and, should correct myself, alumnus, getting involved for that incident. Puts under caution just prior to the halfway point. Why don't we take the opportunity to take a quick step away here? You're watching tonight's coverage of the Collegiate iRacing League. We continue on with Formula College after this.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
tonight's coverage from Speedway, Indiana. Justin Prince, Ron Mons with you. Christian Hill, our producer for this evening's coverage here from Indy. It looks very lush. It looks very green. But so far the field has had a lot of green flag racing up to this point. Just 2 caution flags so far tonight. The attrition rate's been high though. So far tonight, we've lost about 10 cars. Andrew Voigt also was given avoidable contact for that last incident to put him at the back of the field. And as we get ready for the restart, 4 cars elected not to take the free pit stop. Burton, Fryman, Beatty, and Ocasio. So a bit of a roll of the dice if you're with Ball State University. 2 of their 4 drivers have elected to stay out on the racetrack for track position wrong. We're back underway.
Yeah, back underway and deciding to play that track position call. We'll have to see if it works out well. We're now at the point where we're starting to see some pit stops begin to diverge here. That's why I always love about the Indy 500. Seeing drivers opt for something a little bit different. You're not going to win the race by doing exactly what everybody else around you is doing. But look at this Hornet's Nest heading down the back straightaway side by side, nearly 3 wide up at the front.
There goes the karting star up in the front as well that streaked through. You look at the heart of the field. Everybody getting aggressive. You also have Nathan Ray, who was your first crash of the day, up to 13th, right of the Hornet's Nest 2, still yet to get back on the lead lap. But up front, you see that battling there. Fryman able to take the advantage. That green car on your screen, Ocasio, the University of Kentucky student, looking to charge.
Yeah, that driver, the number 35 car, as you said about a lap ago, JP, star in karts, shifter karts here in the States. So driver who races in magic karts in real life, showing a little bit of magic here at the Indy 500. We'll see what he can do after starting all the way at the back in 23rd. He is now running in 3rd. He's got Dylan Batty all over him like a bear rug in the number 20 car, but keep an eye on him. He has shown some pace early on.
Dylan is among still saving fuel, though, keep in mind. Okay, so it's a little bit of the difference thing. Halfway this time through, halfway through the race, Fryman, the leader at the halfway point. So these drivers look to battle for the $100 prize pool. Burden, still one of your favorites, but the heart of the field showcases a lot of the drivers that were your favorites early on back here. Santos, no place to go, got boxed up behind Evans.
Oh, but these racers are getting feisty at the moment. This is probably the highest level of aggression that we have seen thus far here tonight. Even though we've had a lot of attrition, it has been a smooth one. Only 2 yellows through in the first half of the race. But now the drivers bring in the thunder as they start to focus on that checkered flag side-by-side racing. Jeff Evans, Lucas Santos in the midst of that, nearly running into the back of him as he nearly gets rear-ended by Alex Jones right in tow. 4 cars covered by just about nothing. Evans and Scosa still side by side as they head their way out of 2 onto the back straightaway right now. This looks like rush hour traffic, which would be fine if they were going about 20, but no, they're going 220.
I've seen a lot of these drivers try and push the tempo. Keep in mind, Evans is losing ground quickly to the cars in front. That's why the urgency is so high. Nearly wiggled his way up into the wall there with the 151 once again. A couple of the cars in the back of the group trying to gain ground like Voigt, but everybody else single filed for position here. And keep in mind, all these cars are all amongst those who elected to top off here. That's the tough part about coming into pit, Ron, is if you've got a fast car and depending on what happens in pit road, there's a chance to get boxed in if you stay out on the track. Yeah, you're at a disadvantage on the fuel, but you can stretch your legs like these two have up front.
Yeah, it goes back to what we were talking about in terms of the strategy. Do you want to be a bit more rigid in this race, or do you want to have that level of comfort? Can you stretch your legs out, hang loose, and just be having a good time, or do you want to be just always boxed into one position or another? I always prefer freedom to be able to do whatever I want to, but again, very reason why I'm behind the microphone instead of behind the wheel. These racers know what they have to do. They know what the agenda is, and they're trying to play to their own strategy. strengths, their own weaknesses, their competitors' weaknesses as well. Lots of these racers that we see out there on the racetrack have driven around each other for many, many moons here in the Collegiate iRacing League world, so they know how each other tick. And when you have that mental understanding of who you're racing with, you know them as a person, you know them as a competitor, and you know them as a racer. That does add in a little extra layer of how you can tackle one of these races, because you can kind of get into the head of the competitors that you're racing around and kind of know what they're eyeballing to make it to victory lane.
Yeah, and for Burden here, as we follow along with him, great chance, again, to be able to replicate history, the fan favorite for many of those watching along, it seems. Here tonight, Mr. Excitement put on some dazzling performances heading into the week, as we touched upon. But coming up to 95 to go here. At this point, you wonder what those adjustments are like for some of the drivers here with the Aero. We know the weight jacker, definitely a talking point. But another talking point here is there was a change compared to last year when it comes to, in particular, the hybrid system we know that popped up in real life last year in the late going. Now, that's going to be an interesting thing, how drivers are using that to manage their speeds a little bit here over the course of the run.
And that's a fantastic point that you bring up there, JP. The hybrids introduced right towards the middle portion of the 2024 season in real life. They're brought out in the IndyCar refresh that came last year in the sim. Now, though, this is the first running of this event for these competitors with the brand new refreshed Dallara IR18 IndyCars in the midst. You got the hybrid system. You've got different characteristics of this car. These machines were pretty much completely rebuilt from the ground up. Even though this kind of base car has been around for a while, of course, as see wide burn nearly scraping the barrier heading out of turn number 2. These cars are pretty much based off of their immediate counterparts and then their immediate predecessors, the DW12. Same chassis that's been in use ever since the start of the 2012 season. It was really actually brought out back in 2010 when they first started designing it and testing it. This is an old platform. This current version of it with the Universal Aero Kits brought out in 2018 with the Aero screen tacked on starting in 2020. That hybrid system, one of the latest and potentially the last iteration of these race cars. This is as close as you can get to real-life IndyCar racing. They shadow their real-life counterparts. Of course, IndyCar rebuilding their relationship with iRacing after a couple of years of turmoil has brought these cars into a brand new form, has brought some new life into IndyCar racing here in the sim as well. So with a brand new car, has a brand new host of challenges and some quirks and features for these racers to try and keep their eyes on as well. The hybrid being one thing in terms of managing this race, you also have to think about the handling changes with an extra 200 pounds on the back of the car.
And it's been really intriguing to see how some of the dynamics worked. Ocasio inside. Here he goes with a kart move. Looking to go inside for the race lead. Ocasio's 35. Shoots up to the lead. He didn't want to wait anymore. Burnin now side by side for second.
Yeah, Ocasio with a punch-out run into turn number 1, getting that spot. Now Fryman and Byrne divulging into civil war right in tow. Byrne looking to try and remain in front, but Fryman keeping the momentum rolling on the high side through turn number 3 and 4. They will still be side by side on the exit position. This is going to allow Jonathan Ocasio to drive off into the sunset right up in front. You can see that gap has grown out now. Dylan Batty looking to get involved in this as well. This is probably the most frenetic racing that we have seen in this field ever since the drop of the green flag 110 laps ago. You can tell these racers have their eyes focused on the prize, and they know that that checkered flag is coming up sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and a lot of these drivers at least throwing their hat in the ring to say, hey, I could be a contender too. And this kind of solidifies how important the track position to qualify was in the first place. To emphasize how close things were in the average. Remember, we know we talk miles per hour when it comes to the brickyard, but the difference between first and what was 15th was not even a tenth of a second for these drivers tonight with this setup run. That's how close the margin was. You're talking about the fraction of a mile an hour, maybe a couple, to determine if you're starting at the front with as an immediate contender, like say Burden, who is up in row 3. Hold on, someone's going stage lap. That is Mark Kalin up on the wall. No caution.
Oh, but that was a massive impact into the inside tire bundles. You can see pretty much every single corner of that race car wrecked, yet to tow back into pit lane. We may see him finally do that right about now. No caution. We remain clean and green. That race car ready for the scrap heap. He tows back to the pits right as your race leaders headed off in through turn number 1 and 2. We've seen turn 2 strike, but that was the most vicious impact that we have seen thus far here tonight. It doesn't have the benefit of turn number 4 where that inside barrier is close to the turn. This time you've got that infield, you've got the end of the road course here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Huge cutout of the grass, and whenever you spin off through there, it's usually going to be a pretty nasty shot into the tire bundle. Saw Brad Keselowski do something very similar to that at Brickyard 400 about 6 years ago. I think that may have been a tire barrier impact, if I am being honest. Shades of something that Felix Rosenquist did in his rookie efforts back in 2019.
So that cuts our field down to just about half, nearly, in terms of how many cars are left. Still looking to see on that as you look at some of these bolder plays. Goes and trying the inside, Beatty. Good defense, though, on the outside. We've seen not too many cars have to deal with the battles in the short chutes or in the middle of the corners yet today.
Drivers really rolling the dice at the moment, going for some moves that we would not have seen them go for a matter of only 30 laps ago, as we see avoiding the barrier, but avoiding the tire barrier, but a huge hit into the safer barrier. Massive contact there, but very easy to do. Heading off through turn number 2. Unfortunate to see that driver smack the fence and major damage there, but we do remain green, and as you said at the time, JP, now pretty much cutting our field down in half.
Yep, 12 cars running. Ray still yet to be on the lead lap as the last of them. 11 are within 4 seconds of the race leader here. So we're almost at the cusp of pit stops here. Those stops expected to come into play at around 75-ish, maybe 70 to go. Looks like somebody clapped the wall, though, in this pack at the back of the group. Didn't get the number, but I can tell that's going to be a problem, I think, for Alex Jones, because he does have some parts of his side pod leaking out a little bit. We can confirm as you look at Beatty on screen.
Alex Jones with that damage, I gotta imagine that car is gonna be driving in a real tough condition. Either the handling's gonna be shot, or it's basically gonna be like he's dragging a parachute heading down the straightaways. So keep an eye on that machine running in 8th from now. Won't be able to drop down too far. The lowest you can go down is 11th, which is currently being head by Ted Lowendick, a driver who's had a torn time of things here. It's fair to say, after starting from the pole, things just haven't really worked out. Now, the pole is a bit of a curse at the Indy 500, it must be said. There haven't been many racers, most certainly in recent memory, that have been able to win the Indy 500 in real life after starting from the pole. I remember distinctly Marco Andretti and his feel-good moment during the month of August in the COVID-delayed year of 2020, when he grabbed the pole for the Indy 500 and did not lead a single lap come time for the race itself. Looks like Lowendick has kind of had that same sort of misfortune befall him, but we still have a somewhat decent amount left here in this race. So time to bounce back, and hey, it's only 4.2 seconds off your leader, which shows you how competitive this field is.
Nathan Ray has now just peeled down off the racing surface. Scheduled, though, in his case. We'll see if he ends up staying down, though, or not. Can't confirm. He is back rolling. And obviously, when it comes to things, Fryman, talk quickly about his season. Second in the point standings coming in. Does have the 1 win on his record, keep in mind. After all, he ended up winning the Beach Party Grand Prix. That was at the Miami circuit, one of the newest tracks on iRacing at the time. Fryman, who's just ahead of Burden here, has done pretty well, though, in general. Has, throughout the season, finished no further than 4th so far in the 23 car. He's kind of kept the trend up tonight for the Ball State machine.
Yeah, keeping the pace, keeping the tempo, and going with the flow of things. One point that I do want to bring up, though, about Nathaniel Fryman, who you just mentioned already has a race win this season, that coming at the brand new Miami Autodrome. He said that we're going to be heading off to St. Pete a little bit later on this season here at Indy, JP. So maybe keep an eye on him potentially grabbing another race win before things are said and done here in this champion. That's going to be a fun track to see added into iRacing St. Pete. Been a little while since we had a street circuit added in, and no, I do not count Miami Autodrome as
it's coming in today. It's officially announced as of today, remember, Ron, because they did have the season update, and that was the confirmation.
Yeah, that's gonna be super fun. And as I was saying, I don't count the Miami Autodrome as a street circuit. I'm sorry. That has one road that you're driving on, and it's the back straightaway. That's a true street circuit, and that's going to be an absolutely awesome addition onto iRacing, and pretty nice feature on this schedule as well.
I think it's decent to have because people don't realize at this point the Miami circuit is not just a F1 track these days. A lot of series come there now over the course of the year. It is basically a near year-round facility that hosts some races there too. He's got some dates planned up there. They just had some sports car racing actually in the past month in Miami around the stadium. They use that track a lot in real life now. And it's not just for the F1 weekend.
Yeah, and it was nice. It was interesting for me to see some of the new layouts that they have of the Miami Autodrome, because obviously everybody knows the F1 layout that they have. That actually crosses a viaduct around the area of the Hard Rock Stadium. So they've introduced some layout to kind of cut out the area around the I-95 corridor that they run by. So there are some new layouts. I believe Formula E will be running on them. Indy Next, Formula E Indy Lights, they were running some tests there. Would not be too shocked if it maybe makes an appearance on a schedule. I know there's one track in the Miami area that I would like to see IndyCars go to, and it's the one a little bit farther down south that NASCAR blocked a return to a couple of years ago, and I'll just leave it off at that. But the Miami Autodrome becoming more of a fully recognizable motorsports facility. It's just not a one-off blip anymore. I will say I haven't gotten the opportunity to drive the track in the sim, but some of those newer layouts do look rather fascinating to me. The turn heading onto the back straightaway of the other shortened configuration, it looks like a fun ride.
It's an interesting time, to say the least. But talking about the race here, we have in action. We're about to see pit stops come into play. This service going to be a critical time for how things break down late. Because here's the thing with the math for some of the cars here, especially for those who didn't take the free pit stop. Those drivers, depending on how far they stretch it here, Fryman can go a little bit further, for example, out of that. Some of the others, like Beatty, can go a little bit further by an extra couple laps. You're talking 4-6 laps offset, not including pace laps. So in that realm, though, if you, depending on when you come down, you're talking about stops coming up with less than 40 to go instead of less than 30, which will put you in the safe zone. So some of these drivers, especially those who are your race leaders right now, might be in a touch bit of danger in terms of how things can go for if they need a top off late versus how many might try a fuel save late.
Yeah, I've had this odd idea just pop into my head in terms of what somebody could potentially be able to do. Obviously, you want to get as much fuel into the car to make it to the end. That goes without saying. But I wonder if some racers are maybe going to flip it, do a shorter stop now, try and get the track position, and then come in for a full fuel load at the very end. I don't think that would work out too well because you want to have the lower fuel load come time for the end of this race, so the handling's a lot better. But that's just an odd idea that popped into my head. We'll see if anybody goes for that. I doubt very highly. Again, very good reason why I'm in the broadcast booth instead of behind the wheel. If I was responsible for some of these driver strategies, they would somehow be able to finish 24th, which would be impressive considering we had only 23 drivers start this race. But I think the strategy strategy, as we have talked about at this race. Some people may hear us talking about the strategy incessantly on this broadcast and think, okay, you're overplaying it. No, it's Indy. The strategy has decided so many of the winners. Alex Rossi, as a rookie in the 100th running back in 2016, was able to win the race in the fuel mileage finish of a lifetime, as we now have some swapperoos at the front. Fryman jumps in front, and Dylan Batty has also just come into the pit lane.
So the window is now open for those who stayed out. So now how far do they go? Side by side for the race lead. Fryman providing pressure. Looking to try and take the advantage. Coming to 75 laps to go. Burden remains in the wings. Fryman hugs the inside. Gets it done over Ocasio. Now they regroup. Now will we see the dimes come in this time through? Looks like yes, there goes the 35.
Oh, Jackson, hang on to it. Ocasio with a huge sideways snap. Did he get away with that? Did he get away with that? I'm looking through. It looks like he doesn't have a black flag, at least yet. He had to drop the anchors big time and also try avoiding the barrier there. Let alone speeding, he got worried about having a clean race car. Ocasio with a clean race car, probably not with clean pants as he's out and away.
Yeah, that was a little sketchy on the entry. He went 9.7 seconds in the box. That confirms many of these drivers will have to top off, likely with less than 15-ish maybe laps to go if we go green the distance. Fryman just ducked on in also for his sake. I think most of the field is going to be in that really tight window unless they massively back off the pace for the next two stints here to have a shot to be able to go on one less stop compared to the others. And that's the tough balancing act now, is try to go slower to save, or do you try and go fast and set yourself up on pace? I think a lot of the people are now getting forced into the have to push here because you're not going to make it anyway box.
Yeah, we go back to the point talking about what these drivers want to do at the end in terms of what position do you want to be in? Do you want to be in a box where you have no room to go, but the path to victory is a bit more clear, or do you want to have the wiggle room? I always prefer the wiggle room, but everybody just trying to side their way through this race, figure out what they need to do. It's all a matter of driver comfort, what they think is the better call. It's Indy, though. We're going to see split strategies throughout the night as Jake Cummings, I thought, was heading into the pits. He just got overtaken by Tyler Scosi for second.
Yeah, now our driver pushing hard. Burden just entered pit road this time through. As you see, some of the drivers like Scosi, Cummings, Evans, and Lowendick push the tempo. Evans, as we talked about, one of the drivers who normally runs in races in our series. Fredonia State, based out of New York, marketing major, controlling the tempo, a part of this group. These two, at the very least, with the way things have survived so far, have stayed well in sync. They've made it clear that they want to work together. They want to be able to plan together to try and get the win in this race with the way things are shaping out.
So firmly in this pit window, one driver that I will be keeping eyes on to see what he does is this driver, the number 19, Teddy Lowendick. We've seen him, I wouldn't say struggle throughout this race, but it hasn't been the other drive that he wanted after starting from the pole. Didn't even lead the opening lap. He's now running in third, albeit we are in the midst of the pit cycle. Just got a move put on Jeff Evans. What is Lowendick going to do here? If anybody throughout this field is going to be a bit more creative, a bit more adventurous in the pitch strategy, you can give it a Lowendick. I think he's going to be the one to try and throw a curveball at the end and just figure out a way to diverge away from what has been a somewhat unified strategic call throughout this race. He's now going to come into the pits, clipping the line as your top four all flooding at the same time.
Here's the thing about that number here. If they replicate 35 again, which is going to be a tough ask here, they could potentially save a stop if they go 35 that final stint. That's going to be extremely difficult, though, because remember, the 35 includes the caution period, and that's the only time anyone's hit it is when we've had a yellow.
And with less cars out there on the racetrack, we got to think of what I always like to call the saddest paradox in the world of racing, when a driver needs a yellow flag to make their strategy work, and the yellow flag does come. The bad news is it comes from themselves. So with few cars out there on the racetrack, only 12 of them running currently, you got to think, will there be a yellow between now and the end? Now, because I said that, I probably jinxed it. We're going to have a driver smack the catch fence heading out of turn number 4. However, if we remain clean and green through to the very end, that number 35, that lap 35 pit lane call, that is going to be... I think the best way I could probably sum it up is like trying to find a diamond in a Milky Way bar.
I mean, that's almost finding like the golden ticket, so to speak, or something like that, I guess you could say.
Golden ticket to victory lane.
Yes. I mean, it takes a lot of skill to be able to find that victory lane, though. It's not just about who gets the biggest ticket. But with 67 to go, 3 cars are in the situation up at the front to check in. Fryman, Burden, and Santos are again your lead pack. Santos, an impressive job to get back into it. But Beatty, Ocasio, you also have Skozen and Cummings. They are not in that conversation. They're 4 seconds back, but the difference is, again, the top 3, yet again, are saving hard on gas.
Yeah, saving fuel, lifting out of it, trying to find any way in the book to make this work. Now, is this the call to play? Is this the smart call for these drivers to make? We'll have to find out. I think if they can manage it well, everybody's got their own way that they're going to try and grab the W. If they can manage it well, they could be golden. Seeing the side-by-side, though, off through the north end of the racetrack, through the North Chute, Ave, turn number 3 into 4. I think that these racers are running maybe a dangerous game potentially, as if they lose out on a lot of time, they're just going to bring in this field that we have on your top shot there, heading off to turn number 1. You see that gap has come down just in this little flip flap of mine. I think this may be a slightly dangerous game. I personally would not play it, but these racers know what they need to do to make it to the end, so they wouldn't be doing this on, baseless speculation and pure hope. They know what they're doing. This is a calculated and concise effort.
And keep in mind, some of the drivers are working together amongst these packs tonight, whether in CIL Discord or whether in their own Discords. We talked about some of those who are in the back of the group at the moment working here. Also, the Giga Lads, as you call them, now Burton, Skozen, Cummings, all in the same communication band. Those being in 2 different packs right now. So at the very least, there's communications coming for you to have to think for the 26 to say, okay, I'm still saving like this, while the rest of the cars are in that same group trying to charge up to them, have that coordination amongst friends here to see if they can come away with the win here out of those Gigas.
Let's see if it's a Giga Brain move at the end of this race. Galaxy Brain stuff. We still have a lot of time left to try and settle the score here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The gaps are closing up at the front. And with this battling starting to get intense and this 3-3 affair turning more into a 7-car train, you know how I said that the chances of a yellow were starting to drop down a bit? Well, you can take that, put it in a shredder, and then put that shredder in a wood chip, because I think if these racers start to squabble up, we're going to start to see that chance creep up ever higher. So those racers who are maybe eyeballing a run to the end with the assistance of a yellow to make that fuel call work, then they don't seem too crazy right now.
Here comes the charges. Time to send it. Beatty going for the lead. He's going for a 4-for-1 special in a 1. The 20 takes the race lead, and that shows the aggressiveness of the save compared to some of the others here. What a rocket ship to get to the front.
Yeah, rocket ship ride, clipping the coupon into a 1 and getting the top spot. Now, with that move, will this change the tone at the front of the field? they can still do a little bit of fuel saving. Certainly that number 20, if he had the conviction to drive up to the front like he did, I'm not sure if he's going to risk it too much. Will he do a little bit of fuel saving here? You don't get great fuel numbers being the hole punch, and you're just going to be a sitting duck heading down the straightaways if you do decide to lift. Is this going to start to cause these racers to bring the thunder and start to battle a little bit more? I think that may potentially happen. That could be sort of not the push that sends these drivers into anarchy, but the small little tap that starts to get these racers kind of glancing at each other with a bit of anger.
Yeah, and right now, elbows coming out again for some of the drivers, not so much for a few of the others playing the strat game. That air pack, by the way, not really gaining too much at the moment. Did turn 6/10 through the last time throw. They are picking up the average, 8th on back, but they're also near 3 seconds back on the margin. In other words, what I'm trying to say here is it's fuel save o'clock. It's time for no one to pass by 206 miles an hour. And oh boy, the 20's letting them go.
Yeah, so the 20 not happy about being the hole punch. He wants to have the racers punching the hole in the air for him. He barely hangs on to P3 as look at that close call with the 35 right in tow. Jonathan Acasio trying to hold on to that race car and hold on for dear life as they got oh so close to contact. They're going to nearly fan out pretty wide as they come across a yard of bricks side by side racing. Still going on 20, trying to cling on for dear life after that chicken's lift hang down the back straightaway, trying to put himself in a better fuel saving position. This is not helping these drivers' cause. It's certainly helping out your top two, but not helping out anybody behind.
Yeah, especially with them running together. At this point, everybody is back in the pack, by the way. I have to give one credit to the person who has still stayed here over the course of this run. 12th place, Nathan Ray is the only car that's managed not to be in this pack, by the way. Is in range, potentially get lapped soon if we take green until by the time we get to the next stop window. But here's a look at the breakdowns of schools. What I'm seeing here is outside of Ball State, not one school in control. We have a slam. It's Ocasio in the wall.
Oh, and that's going to be game ender for him. Huge damage. You can see already that car driving around like a trash bag full of mango pulp. He's going to have to pull it into pit lane, probably have to repair that car. Wonder if there's a meatball flag, but either way, huge damage inflicted onto that race car. Similar shades to what we saw go down a bit earlier when the 172 dropped out of this race. It's a University of Kentucky driver now running into trouble, running into the barrier, huge smack of the fence, and that's going to take it one car out of it.
Hard slam, and there goes one of your contenders. That flash speed for 17 laps led. That brings our attrition rate past midway. More than half the field has hit a barrier. Noted race control incident involving that, by the way, that also has Nathaniel Fryman a part of that note. So it's going to be an interesting situation for Fryman, who is right now one of your championship contenders in the top 5 for this race.
Yeah, so we talked about Fryman a bit earlier on, maybe feeling good about his chances come time for the St. Pete round a little bit later on in this campaign here in 2026. But at the moment, he's looking to get a good result out of the day, but I jinx him immediately. A wall tap heading out of turn number 1. That was front to rear. I think a bit more rear end than the front. He may have to worry about the suspension geometry on that race car. Certainly lost time to Batty and now falling into the crutches of Skozen. That's the fight that may flare up for the final 2 spots inside the top 5. I should probably keep my mouth shut about any more racers before the commentator shakes falling and comes down on them.
That's caused this pack in part to really separate out. I was about to say, the leaders here, I don't know what the top 2 have done all of a sudden, but everybody all of a sudden has abandoned the fuel save yet again. This is similar to what we've seen exactly at the start after the first caution, where it was a lot of saving and everyone picked up the pace by a second again. The leaders have done that quicker than everybody else, and it built up a buffer of a second and a half.
Yeah, so building a good, comfortable margin right now. Drivers stretching their legs at this point in time. What sort of fuel game are they cooking up? Are they saying, you know what, we know that we can't really make it to the end on just one more stop, so let's just absolutely solidify that. Let's mash that gas pedal, absolutely send it, and cross that bridge when we get to it. I think that's what they're doing right now. Certainly in a situation like that, when they have a shot to win, you're going to say, you know what, I'm not doing myself too many favors doing this fuel-saving stuff. I am fighting a losing battle. Let me just run as quick as I can. And with all the chaos breaking out behind them, side-by-side racing and drivers fanning out, we saw the top 7 covered by nothing not too long ago. And even though the gap between your first-place runner of Wyatt Byrne and your P7 runner of Teddy Lonedick is still 4.3 seconds, the margins between those competitors has definitely gone a bit more evenly spread, like a piece of melted butter on warm sourdough bread. I gotta wonder whether those racers saw that going on behind and said, you know what, now's the time to mash on that gas and just send it.
Oh, and things are falling apart for Fryman still. Another scrape to the wall for good measure. He just continues to graze the tires up against the wall. Going to be have to be careful to not destroy the suspension. Was so late in the race going after so many laps logged, things continuing to spiral all of a sudden. With less than 53 to go this time through. Now halfway through those windows yet again as we go. And Burton and Santos, where have we seen that show before? 1 and 2 yet again. Santos slipped back for a fair bit. Remember, was in the Hornet's nest when we first started this run, because of the way he chose the pit stops under caution, compared to Burton, who did not pit after the yellow. You know how much that difference came to be, Ron, for strategy? 0 at this point on laps.
Yeah, so Santos getting the good rub of the green, working out well for him. We're about to enter the final quarter of this race, and Santos is only a half a second back. A half a second margin at this point in the day is a minuscule margin. Wyatt Byrne feeling the pressure. He's been the quick driver throughout the night. I think it is still fair to say. Started up towards, started the night off with a good run. Of course, your race winner in 2025 in this event. But ever since he got up to the front, he's never really looked back. He's led a boatload of laps, has shown constant speed. But I think Lucas Santos is going to be a big thorn in his side throughout the end of this race.
New penalty. It is this car you see on screen. Fryman has just been black flagged drive-through for the incident with Ocasio. So he will have to come through and take out his chances. If we don't get a caution, Fryman will lose the pack with this.
And as things go from bad to worse to even worser still, that's going to be such a shame to pick up a penalty at this stage. I wouldn't say that is a complete game ender, but he's going to be on the back foot massively throughout the rest of this race. We'll say thankfully for him, though, with the level of chaos that we have seen, I still would not rule him out. So at the moment, he's still running inside of the top 10. Nick Prix is in 11th, 2 laps down. He can still get a good result out of the night. Frankly, he's guaranteed to get a top 10 unless he smacks a wall furthermore. So Fryman, it's not going to be a huge disaster for him in terms of the points, but definitely would have wanted a little bit more, especially compared to how things were looking before I opened my trap, said something nice about him, and next thing you know, disaster after disaster, wall tap after wall tap, and then a penalty to really send him under.
So Fryman will potentially lose a lap if we go green with the speed difference possibly in the main pack. We'll have to keep an eye on that as we take a look right now. With all things considered, Cummings again amongst those who are now in what is the second main crew. All state machines had been that original second pack. Cummings, now with the natural progression, is still saving hard. A lot of lift and coast in the heart of corners. Obviously hard to clutch and coast per se like you'd do in a stock car here, but he is trying to let this car roll a fair bit in the corners. Still pushing on the straights.
Yeah, still hustling down the straightaways, but all through the 4 corners, just trying to find a small little bit of fuel saving, just eke away at it, even if it's just, you know, a couple of tenths of a gallon in a 5-lap period. That will add up after a while, so we'll have to see who's able to play the fuel saving game the best. Now, that is a slippery slope. You can only fuel save so much here without just losing out on an apocalyptic amount of time. I mentioned Alexander Rossi's win here at the Indy 500 in 2016. I am terrified of the fact that that was a decade ago nearly. But when that happened, he started that final lap with a half a lap margin over Carlos Munoz. He lifted off so much to try and make it to the end that by the end of that final lap, it was only like a half a straightaway margin between those two. So you can do fuel saving here, but it's certainly a heck of a lot easier in a stock car than it is in these low-slung Indy cars.
47 laps to go in this one, by the way. We're in the closing run with pit stops looming within the next 6 laps. Obviously, that number well out of the range still for a majority of the teams. Those on the save, the hard save at that, have really lost a lot of ground in this group. 7 seconds is where they're going right now on this pack. This goes in on the call. You have Lowendick. All these drivers have gone back to 43 seconds after initially flying to start these stints. But you have to say, this race is rocketing on by. This is one of the quicker races you would think for 500 miles here at Indy because of how efficient the field has been. I know there's been the attrition high tonight, but not to jinx it, you haven't had too many caution gremlins come out. No cautions, precautions here tonight. The field is at a quick pace to try and complete itself for a chance for the win. They also, by the way, if they did have attrition tonight, they only have like an hour of flexibility in the time session right now. So it's a good thing there wasn't a caution fest because you don't want this to end on time because the cap was 3 hours.
Yes, and these races have been very smooth and efficient about things. And I was just going to say, the quickest ever Indy 500 was actually Helio Castroneves' in 2021. It was 2 hours and 37 minutes, average speed of 190.6 miles an hour that year. We've been flying through this race. I shouldn't have said anything, though, because I probably just jinxed it. But, yeah, these racers have been tackling this race with ruthless efficiency. Yeah, I will go back into the history lane and bring this up. I mentioned, I think I said this right before we went on the air, talking about a Indy 500 field with a similar size to this. It was the 1916 Indy 500 that had the lowest ever amount of starters in the history of the event. Only 21, obviously. World War II at that point was raging in Europe, and we were knocking on the door of entering the war here in the U.S. Obviously, the preceding 2 years of the race were actually canceled as a result of the First World War. But in that race, it was the only time in Indy 500 history that it was scheduled to run any other distance besides the traditional 200 laps and 500 miles. I believe it was 120 laps that year. Now, the Indy 500 has been, called short before. Many rain delays have gone on, notably one that always pops into my head is 2004 when Buddy Rice was able to win in some rain-affected conditions towards the end of that event. But only one time in the history of the event was it scheduled for anything more, well, anything less, pardon me, than 500 miles. And it was a year that had 21 starters. So completing this race with a similarly sized field in very similar pace, these drivers have been running a heck of a lot quicker than they did in 1916, but certainly going through this race with a lot of efficiency.
Here we have so far over the course of this one. See with some of the onboards, just how smooth some of these drivers are trying to keep it in the heart of this field. For example, you take Alex Jones, who is the one we're on board with here. Haven't talked really about him here tonight, we'll say, outside of the fact he had some damage before. Now for Jones, he's one of the Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology drivers, mechanical engineering student. He won the Indiana State High School Championship 3 times. 3 times, Ron.
Yeah, so certainly a good resume there for Alex Jones in that number 45 car. Now, we did see some damage on that race car a bit earlier on in this broadcast, but it hasn't seemed to really put him down too terribly much as Wyatt Byrne has come down pit lane. I was expecting that pit stop soon, and here it is 40 laps away from the end. He comes into the pits.
Pit stop time, and this will put him well outside the window to make it, obviously. This would put him, if he elects to wait until the end, a 12 lap to go stop, if not less than 15 laps. So there is a chance to come in a little earlier, take the splash then. There is a chance to wait to the very end. We'll have to find out what he does, because Santos will also have to duck down this time through, and has. Cummings and the rest of the drivers on the hard save picked up the tempo again as they continue the back and forth. Looking at pit road, that's Ocasio that has the meatball flag still. He's already out of the car, I believe, in this case.
Yeah, so still down there in the pits after the other drama that we saw befall him, the big wall tap heading at turn number 2. Out of this race, he's decided to call it a day fully. So such a shame for him having a good opportunity to win, but things befalling him poorly. Alex Jones now out and away, 9.5 seconds down in the pits, and I want to fact check this before I said anything. The Rose Holman Institute of Technology driver. The Holman name to IndyCar fans may sound familiar. Tony Holman was the longtime owner of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The Holman family bought it during the Second World War when the track was in ill repute. Holman was the owner of a baking flour company, I believe, many moons ago, and then they ended up buying the Speedway, buying the IndyCar series, and they continued to own it all the way up until 2019 when they sold it to Roger Penske. So nice little connection there for that driver in the number 45 machine.
Yes, the Holman family made significant donations to that institute over the 1960s and 70s, I should say. Put $15 million in additions to the endowment at the time for the change in 1971. So interesting backstory there as we continue on following along with these drivers. Speaking of setups, first time we got a chance to look at the camera. I know a few drivers were asking about things. Well, the production room is very busy, as you can see. Hello,
hey,
Christian.
Hello. It's yeah, I will say that is a lot more of a sophisticated production setup than I have. I've had to produce occasionally on one single monitor, and I will say that's basically like juggling chainsaws. So I wish I could have that setup right there. Probably cost more than some of my vital bodily organs would sell for on the black market.
I mean, these days, good monitors to have good refresh rates, or at least where I'm from, $400 to $600 a monitor. If you want an ultra wide, it's $1,000. It's more than a TV. Plus, you have to factor in, if you have multiple computers, you have to factor in different software. It's a long process. 36 to go is when this field comes down. That's not 35 to go. They did go 33, and this puts them into, if this goes green, you'd have to think top off's late unless they go absolute heavy save.
Yeah, super duper heavy fuel saving. Would they be able to play that well? You can do heavy fuel saving here, but can you maintain pace? It's a matter of balance. You have to strike a balance for that. You got to manage going quick, putting yourself in a good spot, but also getting to that fuel number. I think that's just too much of an ask, too much of a stretch. We'll have to see if they can play it out. I've seen Stranger Things, and I don't even have a Netflix subscription, but for the meantime, these competitors have one goal at the moment, just to make it to the very end. Now, whether they need a little bit of a splash and dash or just a ridiculous amount of fuel saving, only time will tell.
I mean, Jeff Evans might be in a good spot. He just made it on 34, but he'd have to save a lot of gas. Here's the thing. That would only be a small cushion he'd have over Burton, Santos, and company in terms of where he is positioned on the racetrack. So there's a lot of dynamics here. We're not inside the green light for sure on fuel. That's in at least 5 laps to be borderline. To be safe is in 10. As there's the move for Jones to jump ahead of Voigt, the Penn State driver.
So once again, seeing some more racers just trying to throw something different at the wall, see what can stick by the end. I mentioned how everybody was maybe going to just do something slightly different. We've seen that snowball from there, JP. The first few pit stops, everybody was a bit more uniform, a bit more unified in what they were doing strategically. Now it's just been so many breakaways, so many different break-offs of drivers saying, okay, I want to come down pit lane here. Here's a fuel-saving strategy. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what this driver is doing. So different. I don't think there is a repeat of the drivers throughout this field who will have a completely identical run strategically to the checkered flag.
So 33 laps to go for those tuning in. It's been an exciting one. A lot of intrigue, little cautions, lots of drivers with issues. Nathan Ray may join that list because he slammed the wall down again. Here's a look for the 20. Now there's a big note for this. He came down much earlier, but Fryman came down that lap with him. They haven't cycled together, but the Ball State cars, I think if they group together here, have a game plan to work to try and get the 20 to win for Matty.
If they could play that game, that'd be awesome. That would be fantastic. Everybody's still eyeballing that victory. I honestly, I'll be honest with you, JP, I don't know what other twists and turns we're going to have here. We still have that looming fear of a potential yellow between now and the end. We saw that drivers were getting a bit froggy earlier, and now in the final 30, I'm sure racers are going to be sending it to one number.
Now, here's the toughest part of that initial play. You kind of need them together, right? In theory, Ron, if you want to cycle for that strategy, they're half a track apart, the 20 and the 23. Obviously, you don't want shenanigans, but I mean, it's the thought that counts, I guess you could say, to match up on strategies, I guess.
Yeah, potentially. Sometimes going matching can work out well, and we still need to think about the points as well. Some drivers may just, I wouldn't say settle, give up and settle, but they may say, you know what, I'm in a good spot, let me just try and get a good run out of the day. As there's Andrew Voigt kind of moved on Alex Jones, battle for P6 at the moment. Voigt, the top running alum at the moment here in this field. Not a lot of those drivers left at the moment. Nathan Ray, he's been down pit lane for the past 100 seconds. A falling anvil's come down for him, as Ted Londick and Jeff Evans are the only other alum out there on the racetrack, as Alex Jones has once again jumped in front of Andrew Voigt. This is getting a little bit intense here in this fight. I'm not going to lie, the swapping going on. I think it is controlled swapping, though. These two trying to play the fuel game and just keep the momentum rolling and able to keep the draft going, too.
Yeah, and swap draft's so critical to maintain that pace, albeit they're nearly half a track behind, but some of these drivers, I think, might be trying to stretch. Obviously, Lowen, Dick, and Evans are in that ballpark. 23 seconds back, though, is a lot of margin that they will not have when they're saving under the race compared to those on full tilt. To confirm with the point scale, for those curious, yes, 50 points for the winner, 40 for second, 35 for third for the championship standings, 1 point for the pole sitter. That point already going the way of Ted Lowendick, who is a part-timer. So throw that out of the equation. Fastest lap, you must be in the top 10 here tonight. That's Wyatt Burton. That's in play for the standings. Most laps led, that is Wyatt Burton, who's led the most laps. That would be at least a few bonus points his direction. Depending on what happens, that is going to help him to chip away at car 95 if the gap holds. That would potentially, if the math serves right, Ron, put burn in the points lead if he holds on to the race lead here late.
Yeah, so if he can grab that W, even just get the good run and get a great haul of points here, that'd be a very productive night. I'm sure he's eyeballing the victory, but taking the points lead would be a pretty sweet little cherry to add on top of that Sunday here as well. So Whiteburn doing everything in his power, holding on to that fastest lap of the race. He's led throughout, has a real good shot to win. The fastest lap point, that is assured to go to at least, one racer, because, we only have 10 cars out there on the racetrack. As long as you have the fastest lap, you just need a bodily temperature roughly in the 90s to get it right now. You could drop out right now with the fastest lap and still be able to clinch it as long as you have it come time for the very end. But Whiteburn has put together a stormer of a night. 0.7 of a second is the gap between himself and Santos. The driver that we had pinned as maybe being one to keep an eye out for has certainly proved us correct here in the broadcast booth. Burns had a good night, but the driver that I outlined right at the start of the show as we were on the pace lap, Jake Cummings, he's running in third right now. He is 9 seconds back of your leader, but even if it doesn't work out to be a victory for him, it has still been a well-composed night for him.
Yeah, this is going to be a pretty solid day for some of the drivers in the hindsight. Remember, with the prize pool, $60 for first, $30 for second, $10 for third. And that, I know that's a pretty big range, so to speak, for the top three, but it's the difference between having maybe an extra meal on campus to being able to go out to the steakhouse to buy a steak for dinner instead, to be able to celebrate.
Or, as we learned a few moments ago, that would be like a fraction of Christian's production setup. So the more you know about that as well. But yeah, $60, that's a pretty nice payday there. So Whiteburn looking to secure that bag as we get to the end of this race.
Yeah, and right now we are in the green light on fuel. Green light on fuel this time through. We have the field saying, I need cautions. And some of the drivers have already confirmed wheel damage. Voigt's got wheel damage. Couples like Alex Jones confirmed he's still dealing with the right side damage. Most of those drivers back there on the fuel save, Ron, is what we're saying here is they are really damaged and are going to really need the caution to fix their cars.
Yeah, so a tough road ahead for the racers with wheel damage, but that could maybe be music to the ears of those looking to have a yellow, which is a solid chunk of this field. As I said, the sad paradox in the world of racing, a driver needing a yellow and the yellow flag coming out because of their own doing. If it does happen, that's probably going to be how it plays out. 20 laps left to go, though. The handling is maybe falling away on these race cars. The fuel is burning off. They're getting lighter. They're getting a little bit skittish. These racers are running tired as well. They have been out there on the circuit, not even including practice, qualifying, the warm-up session before we headed off into this race. They have been driving here in this event for the past 2 hours, nearly 2 hours and 15 minutes to this point. So they're exhausted. The handling may be bad on these race cars. The ambient temperatures have remained the same. The track temperatures at 119 Fahrenheit. So they aren't feeling factory fresh by any means. So even though these racers have a lot of seat time at the moment, there is still that looming chance of yellow ever hanging around this racetrack like a dark rain cloud.
The in-sim time, by the way, for those curious, is at 2 p.m., so the temperatures are still pretty high at 83, 119 track temperature. Check in on that ballpark. And as you would expect, not a chance of rain in the sky, and it's pretty dry in terms of humidity. It stayed toasty for these tires. These Firestones have been put through their paces right from the get-go. Right now, as things shake up here, I know I alluded to the potential strategy game here, Ron, of pit in early or stretch it late to save time. What do you do if you're some of these leaders here, like Burton or Santos, or say Cummings or Skozen, who we know are going to definitely have to potentially top off in some of the cases here? What's the plan in terms of when you peel on down here for your money stop?
I'm sure these competitors are just going to be hanging out there as long as they possibly can, waiting for that yellow to come out, and when it doesn't, they'll finally break down pit lane before they run out of gas out there on circuit. You always have to consider that as a possibility. Even though this field is spread out, this racetrack packs a punch. It is brutal. Very easy to just lose it all by your lonesome side-by-side racing we've got on camera right now. That could be an opportunity as Jeff Evans and Ted Lowendick battling out for P8 right now. So if it were me, I would maybe stay out there until that yellow comes out, but I can also understand racers saying, you know what, I'm not even going to bank on a yellow. Let me just split this final 20 laps. Come in on lap 90, so I kind of get the best of both worlds. You know, I can come into the pits a little bit earlier, and I can have the lighter fuel load come time for the end of this race. It's the Indy 500. You're not going to see a green-white checkered attempt, so you're running to the end. You're running to lap 200. If you can line up your car to have a good handler and a rocket ship underneath you by the end, that would maybe be a good call. So I'm actually going to amend my statement and say instead of waiting for a yellow, I would maybe try run the numbers a bit and have a good race car, a quick race car for the end. So maybe an early stop could be the right call, as we are seeing drivers do that.
There it is for the 20. That's expected, though. Remember the early stops. So Matty coming on down to complete the service. No response from his teammate, though. He's well behind with the order. So eventually here with less than 20 to go, the error should be drawn down. I correct myself. Fryman actually pit last time by. But the leaders, no blinks yet. They continue to chug along here as there is a bit of a divergence up at the front as we've looked away from the leaders, by the way. Santos has fallen off a cliff almost 3 seconds back all of a sudden. Obviously, something's amiss on the 13 because Vernon is running.
Yeah, Byrne driving off into the sunset. Lucas Santos, who's looking to peak at the right time, starting to run into trouble. Now, is that fuel saving that he's doing, or is he just struggling for pace out there on the circuit? I will try and figure this out myself. I'm going to ride on board with him in my own little view to hear what sort of lifting he's doing off into the turns, running in 5th gear, heading down in there. Brief crackle shift up into 6th. Not really lifting out of it. I think Santos may just be struggling out there on the circuit presently and falling into the crutches potentially of Jake Cummings. We ride on board with Santos. You can see his perspective. Look at the dash, look at the lights, look at the gear, and listen to the engine notes of that machine off into the turn. Yeah, run at full song. So wonder if there's something maybe going awry here with Santos, not fuel saving, maybe a mistake out there on the circuit. A sideways snap out of the turn had to give a courtesy chickens lift. But either way, Santos, who we thought had a good shot to win, still has a good shot to win. But the chance may be eluding him as that gap has blown out.
Yeah, it is ballooning and it is sailing away as flying as much as possible here. Santos, he's going a good 3-4 miles an hour. Do you have this? Do you think that's fuel mapping to try and play a game here, so to speak?
That could be it, yeah. I mean, like you can hear that car. It's pretty much at the red line at 5th gear. Usually at speed, you would not see that, but these drivers do have, I think it's 8 different fuel maps that they can run through. I'm curious, Christian, in the production truck, if we could jump to that cockpit shot again, because I know from my own personal feed, I can't see the setting on the steering wheel to see whether or not he is in a different fuel map or not. I'm not sure if we can as well. Yeah, you can see map 1, regen 1. These drivers usually can see all the telemetry. You can, of course, see tire temperatures, fuel map, the regeneration mode with the hybrid system. That doesn't really matter too much here on the oval. Still can make a difference, though. Usually would be able to see all that telemetry, but us being spectators of this session, we cannot see their own feed. They can only know what fuel map that they are in at any present moment. That prevents drivers and teams from doing a little bit of espionage. But I think that's a good theory that you bring up there, JP. Maybe a different fuel map. Certainly, that course seems to be running different. The fact that he is running consistently in 5th gear, it sounds like he's got a torque converter in it. It is screaming at max RPM all the way around this racetrack.
Yeah, this is an interesting situation popping up late in this one. I think both are still in the window where they have to pit, but Burden taking the approach a lot differently compared to Santos, who now has work because Burden is coming in now. He went full tilt this entire run, 28 laps including the in-lap. They are both pitting in, so this adds even more intrigue here with them both having to peel down.
So fascinating. I was thinking that one was maybe going to break away instead of the other. Now, though, you got to wonder, what's the pit timing going to look like? Byrne now in his pit stall. Looks like he's very odd in the approach, nearly in the fast lane. He's up on the jacks. Here comes Santos now in pit lane as well. There you can see quick splash and dash. He was getting the fuel saving done, and he's been able to jump in front.
Oh, that's an interesting one. Very interesting play. Backed it up so he could save what is going to end up being in the pit stall. 3-4 seconds. Did he take tires, maybe? I think that might come into play. Yeah,
Oh.
Santos, no tires.
He was up on the jacks. Yeah, that cost him. Wyatt Byrne pitting for tires. Now, though, you got to consider, even though he's got the position behind, Santos has been able to jump in front. Will Byrne have that grip advantage? Of course, that has the tire advantage. Will he be able to make use of it? We've talked about the tire wear throughout the night. Here he comes.
So Voigt, Alonso's peeling down. Here comes the change for the lead. Burden immediately swamp drafts up in the front. Didn't even need a lap, and he's already, my goodness. Santos is on another planet in terms of what his speed difference is to Burden.
Yeah, I was thinking, right as I was seeing those drivers come out of the pits, I was thinking, oh no. As much as he got that spot out of the pits, it was able to jump in front. That tire disadvantage can come back to bite you on the hind end, and unfortunately for Lucas Santos, I really think it is. I think I just heard him briefly shift down into fourth, heading off through turn at number 4. Yes, he did. Shifted down to fourth. That's going to hurt him dearly, losing out on the momentum. You can see that gap beginning to blow out here. Oh, I respect the call, I do, but with how hot the track conditions have been and how much of a scorcher it has been for these racers, any cooler, and I think he would have been able to make that work, but here, it just seemed like he might. It was a brief reprieve. It was a swing for the fences, but that swing and that bat cracked, and it's not going to work out.
10 to go. 10 laps to go, and your current leader, Jake Cummings, is on lap 27, coming at 28. Skozen, he's right now a little bit better on the gas. They are already on the other side of the track. They have yet to indicate a stop. As we come up to when they may come down pretty soon, if they do. Now, everybody else on the fuel save, though, take them out of the equation wrong, because the drivers are already peeled in for service, are already in front of Evans, are already in front of Lowendick, in front of everybody else that's in that conversation to try and stretch the gas. So quite simply, it's either the 95 and 28 find a fuel-saving tree, or Burden gets back-to-back wins here at the Brickyard.
Could they play the fuel-saving game? You see that 23-second gap. It's not really coming down, and Wyatt Byrne has no reason to be running easy at the moment. I don't think Jake Cummings and Tyler Skozen are saving fuel. I don't think they can save the fuel unless they're going to run the final few laps of this race completely by their lonesome. I flashed my mind back a couple of weeks ago here on Green Flag TV and in the Collegiate iRacing League in the Cup Series. It was at Rockingham, I believe, when we had a stunner of a finish in that race. Fuel saving coming up to be a big factor there, and saw some major swaps come time for the end of that race. So the fuel saving game may be played here once more. If Jake Cummings and Skozen can play this out golden, they could be the ones drinking the milk in victory lane. But Wyatt Byrne, if things play out the way that we expect it to with those top two coming into pit lane, this could be it for them. As Cummings slowing down, he's going to come into the pits. That gives a race lead to Skozen with 7 to go.
So Cummings in for the stop. Fryman trying to battle with Ted Lowendick, by the way. That's your better battle pack they've managed to swap by. But now, The focus is simple for the 28, hoping for a miracle, because right now Burton has the advantage by a significant gap over Santos, at least 2+ seconds. The leaders are coming up to 6 to go on one end of the track. Vernon's got clean space on the other, as right now Burton knows he's got the pace, but Skozen is still saving hard. Coming up 5 to go next time.
Yes, goes in 21.9 seconds is the margin. 6 laps left to go. He can do some monumental fuel saving, and unless Whiteburn can find an extra gear and turn on the hyperjets, that gap may be insurmountable. There you can see Byrne, again, more drivers taken care of there. That was Lowendick, I believe, heading down the start-finish straightaway. Gets him dealt with before turn number 1. Just in this little blip-lap of mine, a half a second shaved between Byrne and Skozen. That's not enough for Byrne to just make up the time. He's going to have to hope for Skozen to either come down pit lane, which he is losing out on a lot of time. As Skozen coming into the pits, he is coming down pit lane. Byrne about to win this race if he can hang on to it.
There's the pit stop. This one was expected here. It would have required massive saving to go another 5 laps. It doesn't work out for the 28. Instead, Wyatt Burton coming on through front straightaway. As we are less than 5 laps to go, he reclaims the race lead. More than half the race has been led tonight by the Trine University driver. And right now, Burton looking to ride off into the sunset and into the night with less than 5 to go.
Yeah, Byrne, who had to win it out in a thriller last year here in this event, looking to do it in some slightly more settled and firm circumstances. 3.3 seconds is the margin. Jake Cummings just got past Tyler Skozen. He jumps back into third. The driver that I had penned as maybe being one to keep our eyes out for. Put together a good race, started in 10th, running in P3. We'll have to see if there's any more swapperoos between now and the very end. But Byrne has been dominant throughout this race. 105 laps led ever since the drop of the green flag, ever since he got up at the front. For the most part, he has never looked back.
Yes, indeed. Right now, for Burton, this is going to have a big swing for the point standings. Help him potentially take over, if not be right up to Jake Cummings now for the championship, despite the slow starts of the season. No drops in this series, keep in mind. So you have to close up the hard way. And for Wyatt Burton, he's only a couple laps away from glory. 3 laps to go from being a back-to-back winner of the CIL 500.
Those things are just not going well for Lucas Santos. I have him on my own personal feed. I saw him nearly lose it heading off through turn number 1. This was just allowing Byrne to drive off into the sunset. He'll have 2 laps, 5 miles left to go here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's been a thriller of a night, but the strategy proving to be the one that'll win it all out. Byrne heading his way across the stripe, taking the 2 to go sign.
2 to go. Santos has fallen 4 seconds back. Cummings and Skozen are right now securing a battle for the final spot for the prize pool. That's a 0.6 of a second gap as they go. On screen, one of the closer battles left on track. Voigt, Jones, both with damage. They battle it out for 6th position as they look to close out, as they will take 2 to go themselves. That's how far back they are to Burton.
And Wyatt Byrne on track, maybe for a win. He's going to be taking the white flag this time by. You also have to think about the championship points as well. He'll be able to take the championship points lead if he can round this off. 1 more lap left to go.
A celebration potentially in line here for Wyatt Burton. He's been one of the drivers that's looked fast throughout the season. Immediately shot himself up to the front in this one, going from 6th to 1st in less than 5 laps, and solidified himself as one of the front runners from that point forward. For the final time, Wyatt Burton will come through 3 and 4. Now we'll get the chance to celebrate this one for the 2nd time in the history of the CIL 500. It'll be Wyatt Burton who will come across the bricks and take the win at Indy.
And the rare Indy back-to-back W, Byrne able to get the job done, and he fought for it ever since the drop of the green. He showed that he had the pace, he showed that he had the conviction to get the job done. What a drive from him, and what a race for this field. You think of the Indy 500, you think it's a marathon, and it absolutely was here tonight. 2 hours and 29 minutes and 50.9 seconds for Wyatt Byrne from that drop of the green flag through to the fall of the checker just a few moments ago. Jake Cummings was eventually able to come across the line in P3, grabbing the final prize position. But what a race that we just saw here, JP. That was awesome.
A dominant effort from the Tri-University driver, able to get things done here tonight in CIL competition. Curious how the celebration will look here once he comes across. You see, there he goes. Wyatt Byrne gets to celebrate your winner here at the Yard of Bricks.
Maybe lynched by Indy 500 fans, so burning it down on the Yard of Bricks itself. That is sacred ground in racing world, but Byrne has earned the right to burn it down at the end of this race. What a drive from him. Dominant from Wyatt Byrne. What a well-composed drive from him. Battling back from adversity, keeping the strategy game clean, and he's earned this trip into victory lane for sure.
There he goes to back it up and get in position for the photos here. Big swing for the points. The student gets it done, and now he gets it done for some pictures. So one of the Giga lads gets it done here tonight in this one, Ron. An incredible race here in CIL tonight for the NAPA Longland Corporation Formula College Series. Now let's go right into the results if we can here as we get ready to see how drivers react and how drivers discuss things after this one here this evening. Already drivers lining up to be able to speak with us in the booth. Now, as we take a look at those results, Wyatt Byrne come away with the win tonight. Lucas Santos in second. Jake Cummings the top three. I'll speak with those drivers in a moment. Then goes in Batty, should say, the top five. Then Alex Jones, 37 seconds back over Voigt. 1 lap down for the drivers really trying to stretch it. Evans and Lowendick. Here's the thing. Ted Lowendick actually made the fuel strategy work. The downside, he wasn't in contention to make it work. Nathaniel Fryman, your top 10. He finishes 7 laps down.
And then from here, lots of these competitors falling out. Well, all of them, in fact, fell out. Nathan Ray, who we saw the first driver really run into trouble, ends up in P11. He stayed with it throughout the race, even after falling a lap down early. He's classed in 11th in front of Jonathan Ocasio in P12. We saw him, good contender throughout this race, led a solid amount of laps. It just wasn't meant to be for him. Mark Halen, who we saw in the YouTube chat, letting us know that he was okay after a vicious shot through turn number 2. He ends up in lucky spot P13 in front of Alex Halinar, who had a moment of his own heading out of 1 in the South Chute. He's in front of Nick Costa, who we saw run into trouble. Josh Kampfer had a good shot to win, but then a incident coming into the pits going to take him out of contention in P16. Logan McKim, his brutal 2026 campaign here in this series continues. A P17 result for him. Brennan Lyman classed in 18th. Cade Corbin in 19th place. Grant Schiller will round out your top 20. And just a few more racers left to go. Garrett Greathouse, who we saw crash with Barrett Wolf, they're classed right in front of one another in 21st and 22nd. And Adrian Turbakov rounds out your 23 drivers classed here in this race. 197 laps down when everything was said and done. Those are your results from the CIL Formula College 500 here. It was a great race, JP. Let's hear from some of these drivers, though, because I think they have a heck of a lot to say.
Yes, we have a lot of drivers standing on by here, but let's start things off with your discussions with the driver who finished up with the win here tonight. Wyatt Byrne is able to come away as a back-to-back winner of the CIL 500 presented by NAPA Longland Corporation. $60 going your way here. How does it feel to dominate this race?
It feels great. That was a 500-mile game of chess. It was pretty interesting.
What was your approach initially coming into tonight, and how much did you have to adapt that as the race went on?
I really just wanted to qualify near the front or in the back, nothing in between. That's why I was very aggressive on the start, going 2, maybe 3 wide into 1. I wanted to get in that top 3 where the dirty air is not too bad and just save as much as I can. I really didn't want to lead as much as I did either, but I will take the bonus point for leading the most laps. But really, until the last stint or two, I kind of just wanted to save as much fuel as possible. That way, I could, in case there was a short caution or something like that, I would be able to, wouldn't be left out in the dust trying to make another stop at the end.
So with that in mind, now unofficially, it looks you may or may not have gotten yourself the points lead with this night too, on top of the bonus points here. Now, how do you approach that now, knowing you've gotten a big swing of points with Cummings in third spot, 50 points, remember, to the winner in the series?
Wow, I did not expect that. I figured I would be maybe third at best, so that's good news to me.
Or
Yeah, me and Jake are really close, and he's a very good driver, so we'll see how it goes out the rest of the season. I am gonna miss Gateway, I believe. So that'll be a points drop for me. I know that we do get a drop week or two, so I'll have to use one there no matter what. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. See if we can put up a fight and at least make it interesting for you guys.
think at the very least, once things get added up, it'll be top 3 to correct myself. But either way, it still puts you in the ballpark, but it's going to be tough with no drops in the series. Now, anyone you want to give a shout out to, though, as you get ready to celebrate? Actually, do you have the milk ready to celebrate?
I do. It's right in front of me.
What kind of milk is it? I know that's the big question they always ask the winners.
It is 2%.
Okay. I don't think we have a camera to prove that you've drink the milk, but anyone you want to give it a shout out to, well, before you drink it?
Yeah, I'm gonna give a shout out to Gammy, which is my grandma. She's been in the hospital since Friday, and she's really excited to watch tonight. So hopefully she enjoyed it. I know she'll be happy.
Congratulations, Laurent, here tonight.
Thank you, guys.
Wyatt Burden, strong effort. Going to be in the heart of the championship battle, at least until that missed race he mentioned. But second spot tonight. One of the drivers making an appearance tonight, Lucas Santos. He's with Ron.
Yeah, and Lucas Santos now joining us here on the broadcast booth. Lucas, welcome in. P2 for you at the end of this race, but a very hard fought charge. How was it out there here tonight?
You can say it was hard fought. It was. Oof. It's been a while since my last 500 that I did, and I feel like I'm part of an older generation, not being used to these hybrids, and so it feels like a victory in a way, but at the same time, throughout the race, really tiring, really mentally challenging, and just that ending.
Yeah, but still a hard fought drive for you, P2 at the end. Want to kind of elaborate on that point that he brought up. It was a very challenging night for you drivers behind the wheel, from the hot track temps to the strategy, especially at the very end, and having to get accustomed to these brand new, refreshed Dallara IR18s here in iRacing. What would you say was the biggest challenge to try and overcome to get to that P2 finish?
I think it was still being a fuel mileage race. I mean, we didn't have that many cautions. I believe we only had 2. And it ultimately just became a game of how far can you go on a tank of fuel. I think that was the most challenging portion of this race. Everything else felt fine. Battery management, tire management, just the fuel. Don't know how some of these guys do it, but it was a fuel mileage race.
Yeah, so a very challenging night for sure, and the other strategy at the end, a little bit hard to try and keep tabs on, I'm sure, behind the wheel. But Lucas, thank you very much for joining us here in the booth. And before we let you go and celebrate this P2 result, we'll let you give any thank yous or shout outs.
Yeah, so absolutely thank you to everybody from the University of Minnesota that has supported me for this race. All my friends and teammates back at Screech and Moose Motorsports who always helped me with my driving style, my driving capabilities. Everybody on the car, Operation Motorsport, MS Gear, Moto Emotion, Sports Car Travel, and Torx. Everybody on the car, thank you so much for you guys' support and help. And thank you to you guys at Green Flag for a really good broadcast.
Well, it's our treat as always covering the action. It was my treat being here in the broadcast booth for this event. Lucas, thank you for joining us here in the booth. Well done on the P2, and we'll see you back out there on the racetrack here in the Collegiate iRacing League, wherever it is in the not too far off future.
Thank you, guys.
Yep. And that right there was Lucas Santos. I'll pass it back off to you, JP.
So second going to Santos, third going to your points leader coming into tonight, and right now looking to be in a good, decent spot with that. And no originally mentioned Burden with the point standings, a shake up there. At least going to put him in the conversation. But Cummings coming away with the podium, still in this one. Jake, good race here. How would you describe how things broke out with the strategy as this race went on?
Yeah, that's an interesting talking point. On that last caution, when Tyler and I pit, we weren't really thinking that we could make it to the end on one less stop than everyone else at that point, but we wanted to keep our options open and at the very least just have a shorter pit stop than everyone at the end, which is what ended up happening. But when we were all in that pack early on after that last caution, we were actually able to save the fuel we needed to just do it on one less stop. So we were like, oh, well, this is great. But then Fryman and Ocasio got into it, and that just separated everyone, and we weren't close enough to save the fuel we needed. And then by the time we were trying to lower the fuel map, catch back up, we just didn't have any chance to catch back up no matter what we did. So we just had to run flat out at that point and mitigate the time loss and just have a slightly shorter pit stop at the end, but it just didn't matter, especially not taking tires at the end. They were pretty dead. So Wyatt was just able to run away with it along with Lucas a bit. But it would have been fun to see how that would have played out if we were able to do that. But that's racing, and I'm happy to come away with third.
That being said, here with this type of race, how would you describe the difference compared to last year with the feel of the car, especially with the new hybrid system and the extra weight to the car?
Yeah, the hybrid system made it a lot easier to pass. I know early on in the race, there was a lot of tomfoolery going on in the top 10, and I just didn't really want to deal with it. So I was like, okay, I'll drop to the back, save some extra fuel, see what happens. But then when the caution came out, I didn't really, I noticed that people were starting to get a little spread out after the restart, and I didn't want to, be caught in no man's land. So I ended up passing a lot of people, which is fun to go through the field and then put myself in the position that I was in to maybe go for the win, but at least finish on the podium. But yeah, the hybrid system did make it a lot more fun. I wish it was more effective. I was trying to like use it when I was running by myself to harvest in turn 1 and 3 and then deploy on the exit of 2 and 4, but it wasn't any faster than just running on your own. So it was helpful for traffic management though, especially with the varying strategies. So it was a good add for this year.
Now, lots of races still to go on the schedule here. How do you feel about your championship position entering the month of March?
Well, let me see what the standings are right now. According to iRacing, I still have a slight lead, but I don't know if that's actually true. I feel pretty good about the rest of the season. I fixed my steering wheel issue that caused my tire issue. And by the way, I know y'all said that it was mechanical issues last week too, but I straight up just didn't even think about tire changes. I came out with new alts and I'm like, oh yeah. So that was just a brain fart on my end. So I need to stop making mistakes because that's happened at Auto Club, even though it ended up being helpful, Miami and then Indy as well. And honestly, I think I could have won all four races to start the season if I hadn't made those mistakes. So we'll go on from here, make no mistakes. I think I have a slight edge when it comes to just raw road course pace and strategy and stuff. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It should be fun, and hopefully we get better numbers like tonight for the rest of it.
Anyone want to give a shout out to here tonight?
You guys, of course, that was a long broadcast. I hope you're able to keep yourselves entertained, especially when things got really spread out there in the end. And thank you to Converse Esports and our sponsors. And thank you to my wife, who probably misses me by now with how late it is. Thank you to Tech Sport Racing.
Congratulations on the run here tonight. You get yourself in the prize pool and on the podium.
Thank you. Good night.
Jake Cummings rounds out your top three. I'd like to thank the top three for Speedway during post-race coverage here on Green Flag TV. On that note here, Ron, your final thoughts after what was high attrition, low cautions, lots of good racing here tonight.
Yeah, a smooth night overall, despite a high attrition rate and drivers running into the trouble and learning that this racetrack can bite you where the sun doesn't shine. This racetrack put on some amazing racing here tonight. These competitors were able to cope with the challenge, lots of challenges as well. As we heard in the interviews, lots of different stuff for these competitors to try and manage throughout. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and we've still got a whole season of fantastic Collegiate iRacing League action to look forward to every single week here on Maconie Entertainment, whether you're on open wheel action, stock car action, or some sports at Green Flag TV. Whether you've got whether you want sports cars, open wheels, or NASCARs, we have got you covered here on Green Flag TV. We're going to ignore that I said somebody else. We're going to swiftly and abruptly move on from that. Lots of great action to look forward to, though, here on Green Flag TV, and some fantastic racing action here tonight.
We're just going to ignore that you said NASCAR in the plural sense, by the way, also. If you say that in the NASCAR Discord, they will scream.
You know, I will say, and this is honest, I'm running on 4 hours of sleep and enough caffeine to kill a man, so the fact that I didn't say that earlier on in the show, I give myself some credit. But fair to flame me. I will say that outright.
Long Beach is next week, by the way. March 5th. That's a 9 p.m. start for that one. Be sure to tune in for what will be an eventful start to the month of March here for CIL with the NAPA Longland Corporation Formula College. But it's just about time to say goodbye for tonight's action from Speedway, Indiana. For my colleague in the booth, Ron Mons, for our producer, once again, Christian Hill, I'm Justin Prince saying so long. Enjoy the rest of your evening. You've been watching tonight's action on Green Flag TV. Congratulations to Wyatt Burton, a two-time winner of the CIL 500.